Don't look at me. Don't look at me. You saw nothing. I meant to do that.
Okay, alright. Yeah, right. Hello, egg on my face. Crumpets. These are scones.
How many are there?
Well, I'm American. It's biscuits!
He doesn't even curse around me most of the time, so that'd be a weird one to hear. Yeah, because you're so fucking innocent, it feels weird cussing around you. That's why. Like cussing around a kid. I didn't mean like that, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, I feel like I shouldn't. Until you start cussing. Honestly, you gotta bump those numbers up. You don't cuss enough. I'm crying. I guess I shouted out Pokeball or Pokecatch. That's funny. I heard that. I was like, oh shit. Like, my viral one going off? I was like, that scared the shit out of me. Alright. Like, break the TV? Daddy, I'm sorry!
Yeah, our brother's dead. Sorry. I'm breaking news to you this way. But it's okay. Hey. If you need anything, okay? I'll be here for you, okay?
Jody, you are first.
We're gonna get through this.
How is you? How is you doing today?
Whatever you need, babe. Whatever you need.
Let's gonna let the ads
Pretty
run.
dead. Yeah.
Did the countdown, but I don't see the thing running.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. 3 minutes. I'll go.
It's okay. You need a shoulder to cry on.
What are you doing
Mine's
today?
always open.
Did you win your Fortnites? Said Juice WRLD was dancing on you.
Oh,
Made me
8
laugh.
down sights? Oh, I know, right? I guess I could technically.
Yeah, I needed a nap.
Fake
Sorry.
Ah, shit! That was a real scream that time. Fuck! I hate you.
Some people for a bit.
I hate you.
Fortnites. Enjoy it. Take care. You're having fun.
Give me my knife back, bitch.
I hope the mic is picking me up too. I'm gonna lean into it.
Oh, Lord, they
Maybe I do
come.
have to make it more sense. Actually, let me switch. Alright, I think this is the one that actually picks up a bit more, like the ambience, but it's less mean to me.
I was talking about Cyberlycan. I was like, he's such a Chad.
Might hear me push
I
buttons.
let him date one of my sisters.
Who cares, you know?
Only Cyber. But he's taken, so you can't.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Fuck it! I do need somebody to let me know if they can hear the game and all that.
Well, you know, after
Small chance you can't yet. Actually, wait.
check the DMs,
Okay.
sending me.
This.
Oh God, you're wearing a hoodie. That's my lucky hoodie.
Might be too loud. Man. No, it's hard because he's goddamn good looking. Yeah, it's not picking me up unless I point it at me. Yeah, it is better, but make sure you guys don't get doubles. Because I haven't done this in a while. Yep. Audio properties. Audio is monitor only. Oh, can't hear that. Now you can, I think. Your own. I changed. That one. Two. I think that was it, though. Should be good. Everything else should be running kind of through. I control the audio individually, but it should be running through.
Call it. Call it. That's not audio. Alright, let's see. I don't remember the controls, so wish me luck. And hopefully I'm far enough to where I don't have to like John Wick it this time, you know? I made some modifications. Made some changes, so let's see, it's only 45 minutes, goddamn. Alright, wish me luck. Options. Controller setup. Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, button config. So knife mode. Press the A button. That's fine. Then I just get around. Just looking over at like my audio, make sure everything's running all right. Pause with one button. So the table behind me is like sloped, so I'm leaning against it in this chair, and my chair is like rotating this way to match. Not comfortable, but it's whatever. Alright. Fire with B. Because if not, I know so the trigger kind of fucks with my aim, because I'd be like, pa, 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 even though it's kind of cool. Or no, I changed it to A on the last game, but we're going to stick with it here. Status is minus. Use herbs plus. Oh, that's right, because this one actually lets me use my herbs when I want. And this also has knife mode. Z. Z is status. That works too. Fire A. No, that's it. Alright, that's pretty fucking simple. Let's see. What? Controller yelling at me? You guys might hear that too. It might be like farting. Because it does have a speaker, but it's just doing like drones. Oh, oops, I didn't mean to do all that.
The Darkside Chronicles.
I like how the announcer has to say every like syllable, basically. Resident Evil, the Darkside Chronicle 2. Chronicles. Oh, it's like Doctor Who, kinda. Memories of Lost City. Did I do that one yet? Operation Javier. C. 2. Okay, yeah, I did do all this shit. Oh. When exists? Ooh. Yeah, I guess. Man, how long has it been? It's been months. And I was archiving some VODs. I can't find the first episode. It might be lost content, guys.
She isn't here either.
We'll find her.
Alright, and that's how I switch. Oh shit. Fucker. Oh, reload. Wiggle. Yeah. Where's Marvin at? Marvin, not you too.
Marvin, did you see a little girl go past here?
Marvin, no.
There's something wrong with him.
Oh God, he's dead.
Yeah, it's all coming back to me. Oh shit, that motherfucker's fast. Oh, guys, slave feet. Come on, guys. Where do your eyes glow? Only evil robots have glowing red eyes, or demons.
Damn it.
A biological function. Your eyes glow. I'm not saying they can't be red, but those are glowing in the dark.
We've got to find that girl.
Oh shit.
Oh! How the?
Not him too.
Not you too, Marvin. Not you too. Alright, dude, come on. Stay down! Damn, boy! Get down.
I'm sorry.
Double
you
tap.
went down like this.
Does anybody know how long this game is? I got a not great score, I'm sure. A B. Hey, I like how I quit with like 30 seconds of the fucking level left. Oh, I needed it though. I didn't. B? That's fine. That's better than I got last time. Got the bow gun. That's an That's an underrated weapon in the original RE2. And then in RE t-veronica, you can make that like the best weapon in the goddamn game. You can customize. Weapons. Yeah. Get that shotgun. E+, hell yeah, brother. Need a C soon. Oh wait, that's my handgun. Fuck, I thought that was a shotgun. Raid! Have enough for stopping power? No. Alright, that's fine. What else we got? Bow gun? You're fine. Submachine gun? Ooh. Yeah, Chronicles. Outbreak! Grenade, shotgun, handgun. Oh, I do have a submachine gun. Alright, that's perfect. I don't need a bow gun. I don't watch ya.
We gotta find that girl. What do you want to do? Split up?
No, it's better if we stick together. After all, I don't want to pull my gun on you.
Same here.
Uh-oh. Get you. Can't aim for shit right now.
Leon!
Oh shit! Cheap. Let's get the shotgun.
We've got to get out of here fast!
Screw this. Let's go.
Oh, I used the goddamn grenades. I mean, just shoot two of them. Nice. I think I gotta worry about them. Hope not. I do think I get attacked by crows. Sounds about right.
Hell on earth. Whether you're in the station or outside on the streets, it's all the same.
Yep.
We gotta find her fast.
Hey, come at me, bro. Yeah, go.
Get in, quick.
Yeah, get in quick, get closer.
Which way?
Let's go right.
You say, babe. Shit, the partner helps. That. That's cool, I feel like she's actually here.
Is that a rescue helicopter?
I just want to like mock her every time.
What was that?
Ah, shit.
Did he just come through the roof?
X gonna give it to you. Where the fuck did they come from?
What do we do?
Just run.
Oh, okay.
It's coming after us.
It has a name. God damn it, game. Open the fucking door, bitch!
Tells me he's not gonna listen to reason.
I could have just spammed him a little bit. Bitch!
Run! Now!
What the hell is that thing?
He's a monster!
Look, right now we just need
Look
to
at
find
the
that
monsters! Over the camera! You know what? Okay, go, 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 go. You suck. Oh, I hit you in the head, you liar. Gaslighting me. Can I reload? Alright, oh, god damn. What? Yeah, I'm doing terrible. Sorry, guys.
girl! We can't get through!
I'm
it.
rusty.
He's here!
Uh-oh. Oh, wait! Oh, fuck you. Trying, but goddamn floaty ass.
Find a way.
We have to put out the fire
Oh.
somehow. There's gotta be a way.
Give me an herb.
Let's go.
Look at that goddamn herb! Oh shit. There it is. Wait. Wait, 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 wait. Okay. Get her.
Get down! Watch out! Run!
Do it.
Don't be afraid. We're here to help you.
You're afraid. I'm here to kill you.
You can trust us.
You can't trust me.
Hey, wait! We've got to help her.
Gold! Ah! Okay. But more gold. Oh man, I wish I could at least like pick shit up still when I'm reloading.
Do I
Like there's like a cadence, there's a rhythm, you know?
I'm
If you
Claire.
like
What's your
shoot,
Sherry.
wait.
Hey, wait.
Because habitually, just the way I play games, it's like I'm one of those guys where it's like I'll shoot fucking 2 bullets out of my like assault rifle,
Let's go.
and if there's like a beat, if I have like a moment of cover, I'll reload. Yeah. Turn around so I can get that gold, please. Yeah, man, brother. Yeah. I will say though, different chair. I have board extensions now. Like I'm up, guys. Way more cozy than I was. Goddamn camera.
Sherry!
Like I think they wanted it to feel like a fucking found footage movie.
What the hell are
What the hell? It's like it's literally Cloverfield. Okay, I got it. I got it.
Sherry.
Tight,
are you
tight, tight,
all right?
tight.
I'm okay.
Shh. Something's back there.
Shush me.
Isn't she beautiful?
Oh, this psychopath. Nice. Does he kind of look like Mike Haggard? Is that his name from
I was about to stuff her.
Final Fight?
You know him?
Prowling around at a time like this.
I think it's Final Fight.
G
Certainly not Fatal Fury.
Gee.
Don't play dumb with me.
It's Final Fight. Is it?
Aren't you Dr. Perkins?
Yeah, Final Fight's the beat 'em up. Fatal Fury's the fighting game. Okay. Alright, we're good. No words.
That's not supposed to happen.
Dead. Yeah. I remember puberty too.
Sherry!
Hold on! We need to stop this thing first!
Oh shit. Do it!
Claire, are you alright?
I'm okay. Where's Sherry?
Let's just take care of this thing first.
Ah! Wait. Leave the fuck alone!
hell is this place?
What are you doing down here?
There's something coming.
Oh, dude, it's like a fucking, Oh, shit. Oh, fuck you, game. Come on. Ah, that's bullshit. I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna fucking die, man. We're gonna die down here.
That's where they're coming from.
Did I do good, Papa? It'd be a lot easier if you quit moving so much. Like, I'm already not the best shot. If you can stop wiggling the goddamn camera so much. Big help. Saying. Don't touch me! You puta! Pinche puta! What the fuck? Did I take the arm? I did. Oh no! Looks like Quagmire when Quagmire found internet porn. Oh boy. It's like a war of attrition. It's like one of us will die first. And it ain't gonna be me. It's gonna be me. Why don't you just die already? Ah! Dude, look at his health! He had like a little sliver left. Finished by fucking literally a bullet. Man. Hey, that's awful. I know, me too, buddy. Damn, it's gonna be only to get harder.
What's G? What does it stand for?
I have no idea.
What's the G spot?
We should find
I don't know, I never
Sharon
found
first.
one.
You're right. I'm pretty sure she's still around here somewhere.
Barry?
Let's go then.
Fuck Sherry. My score broken. Gotta see, huh? That? Yeah, that's fine. C for cunt. C for come on, stop moving the camera. I think I just need firepower for a lot of things. Yeah, what can I upgrade to stop the camera from wiggling so much? Real tight. There was some handgun shit, yeah. Stopping power? I already don't really like relying on the handgun. For obvious reasons. It's like, there's like an inherent like lag, you know? Like people that like think this was like viable to just aim at the TV, no. Like there is, like I feel like I'm dragging a laser rather than controlling it. It's basically a wireless mouse. Chronicles. It's a long explanation as to why I'm doing so bad. Okay. Fires a. Okay, this about the same stopping power. The only thing got more reload speed or a better reload speed, slightly not as good capacity. But other than that, it's like slight dip in rate of fire. I'm gonna equip you. I drag it. There we go. Sick. Oh, I can also just use the D-pad up here, but that moves everything because my thumb's like down here. So I can use the little nunchuck, but it's not. I wish it like. I don't know. I'm just coming up with excuses now. You guys don't need this. They're like assholes, right? Everybody's got one. Oh boy.
Sherry, where are you?
Where you at, girl?
Sherry!
Sherry, come out with your hands up.
Sorry, but I've got no time for this.
Like the critical is like their forehead.
This way.
Touch me.
Where did she go?
Gunshot.
Back there! Let's go!
Oh fuck. Hey. He's my girlfriend. He's my girlfriend. You probably had that. Like licking your lips and like
Are you all right?
taking them.
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Hey, baby.
You saved me some bullets.
I'm Leon.
You you like red?
And you are?
Ada Wong. Hey, you're a cop here, right? Do you
Yeah.
know Ben Bertolucci?
Oh.
I'm looking for him.
Sorry, but I just got.
Why? Who's he?
assigned here.
What is he to you? Your boyfriend or something? Just asking.
What are you doing here?
Just
Ben
asking.
has information regarding this crisis.
What kind of information?
Not sure exactly, but that's what I'm here to find out.
All right.
Hey,
What is with her?
Claire, come on.
Yeah, the fuck is with her?
Wait a second.
Oh, oh shit. Ah! I'll read that in a second. I used to go by Ben Bertolucci, so she may be looking for me.
hold up.
Hey, what up, Dick? How you doing?
What is it?
Watch out!
Man, fucking bolt gun sucks here
You
too.
all right?
Yes.
Look, I know we don't know each other, but we're the only
Hey,
survivors
dude.
left.
What's that?
We need to work
Have you played this before? Probably better than me. It'd be not as hard if the camera wasn't like,
No,
you know.
get away from me!
Ben?
Like I think I know what they're going for.
It's coming this way.
How's this treating you? Was this a Wii game? Yeah, this is a Wii game. They also made the HD version for PS3, but I have to be significantly closer to the Wii than I can the PlayStation, because I'd rather use the PlayStation Move because it just looks better. And there's a few like quality of life improvements. Never played it. I didn't even know about it until like 2 years ago. Oh, nice.
I think it's gone.
Yeah, I'm still on the quest to do all the spin-offs and whatnot.
No idea.
It's all right.
What about you? You know anything?
Fun.
Huh? No.
Just
This is all
I feel
me.
like somebody's actually wearing like a head cam.
But that scream.
It looks like police body cam, and that's not optimal
Yeah, you better
to shoot
check it
stuff
out. through.
through. I think I saw this in a Sphere Hunter video. Oh, probably. I'm pretty sure Avalanche covered it too. I like Sphere Hunter. Yeah, it's Leon's shaking a lot. Yeah, Leon got like the shakes. Leon needs a shot or something. He has a drinking problem, dude. I mean, I would too around Claire and Ada. Yeah, he's just like all the zombies and stuff, and he's just still like.
Just heard. Must have been him.
We're too late. That's Ben. There's something on the wall.
It's like anime monologuing. It's like, I just think you guys are really cool, you know?
With no hope of survival, I write this. He must be talking about the police department's involvement with the pharmaceutical giant Umbrella.
Look at this. The station and the lower level lab at Umbrella.
I like how, even though this is
By the sewer.
RE2 Leon, he
Get
sounds
access to that sewer.
like
we can get
badass
out of here.
RE4 Leon. There is a difference.
Where'd she go?
RE2 Leon is a fucking dork. RE4 Leon
She was
is
just
like
here.
James Bond Batman.
Where'd she go? Ada.
The body's gone!
Oh no, not the bodies. Probably isn't Paul Haddad. It might be. Hey, what up, your boy? It might be.
For the sewer.
It's not Alex Mercer, is it? Wait, Alex Mercer? What's his fucking name? Not Alex. Alex Mercer is from Prototype. Ah! Get back! Get back, motherfucker! What am I thinking of? What's his name? Something Mercer, right?
On your right!
Oh, nice.
door's open.
Matt Mercer, yeah, thank you. That
Think
one.
she came this way? I hope she didn't run into that monster.
This is. Oh no, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to pause it. Fuck.
Ada,
How do I pause this motherfucker? Oh shit. I got you, babe. Can I pause this game? Hang on. Okay, it's the C button. So this is the House of the Dead style Resident Evil? Yes. Oh boy.
Calm down. Just aim for it.
Yeah.
Why don't you give it a try?
You snapping at me? Trying to be cute? Oh, it was Paul Mercer. Okay, cool. Or it was Paul Mercer. Yeah, is that him in this game? Or does he just do the movies?
Where did you run off to?
He can do the movies? I don't know. I lost track. So many people play these goddamn characters now.
This'll take us down to the sewer.
let's go.
Wait, Leon. If she
Alison
did come
Court
through
voiced
here,
Claire.
why would
Yeah,
go
she was
alone?
like the longest
There's something about it that
actress to
bothers
voice
me.
her. And when I think of Claire, I think of this
She
voice.
just wants to get out of here, Claire, and she needs our help.
I think that's her original voice actor. I think this is, yeah. She sounds
You
like
just
her.
want to impress her, don't you?
I'm pretty sure that's her.
Women.
All right,
Kind of a tight fit.
women.
This is never gonna work.
Oh no! That's the worst right now. I mean, okay, all right, hold on. Stop it! I have to be so precise with the nunchuck. There's 8 directions, but only 4 of them will let me pick a weapon. You know?
Give me a zombie any day.
It's Claire is no Jill's butt. Claire is no Jill's butt. No Claire. Or Claire, yeah, it Claire. Jill is not in this game if I'm not mistaken. Because this is based primarily. Oh, fuck! Fuck, man, that really fucked me.
There's too many of them.
I was wondering when some more of you were gonna pop up.
I used my fucking herb by accident trying to pause it. I'm really bummed about that. Hey, Jill is like a Green Beret or something. Her ass would be so toned. Jill is like a Green Beret or something. Her ass would be so toned. Oh yeah, you're right. Dude, I mean, did you play Revelations? Were you there when I was playing it? Probably like the best butt in gaming. I'm saying Claire's butt. This game isn't as nice as Jill's butt. Okay. I'm sure you can see how I couldn't infer that from your previous message. Oh no, I'm done. I'm gonna die quick. I think I have a healing spray. Those are like continues. I'm not here for performance. I'm just trying to finish this game. Oh fuck yeah! Gimme. That's what I needed. Just what I needed. Alright, I'm never using the bow gun again. It's a fucking waste. I hate it.
What was that?
No more spiders. Oh, ew. Get the hell off me. I promise you I'm waggling the remote.
What was that?
The ammo.
It came from over there.
Icon has ammo?
Hey, anybody in here?
Oh, yeah, it's oh nice.
Ada, is
Hey,
that you?
Ada. We came for you. Came back for you. Came on you. Huh? What?
I thought you could use this.
Ammo? Shit. Thanks, babe.
Good luck, Leon.
Hey.
This is goodbye.
Oh, what?
I think.
Ada, wait!
No, it's not goodbye yet. You have to fake your death.
She goes again.
I can customize here. Yeah, I can. Get out of here. I don't want you. I mean, not you, Ada. Always wanted. I don't need the magnum yet. I forgot I could do that in this one.
If she can get out of here safely, that's all that matters.
Well,
Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna use the
you're worried
D-pad. It's
about
more
her,
reliable to switch
you
weapons.
could go after her.
You know, I have to like kind
That's
of.
fine. We need to find Sherry.
Okay.
Sorry, I had tacos right before. Oh fuck. Like, it's not optimal. Because I have to take my thumb off the shooty shoot button. Oh, gimme. Oh, damn, dude.
It's that thing again!
The Thing, I love that movie! Fuck you. What? Is that stuff behind you?
Get away from me!
What do you want me to do? Got to time it? Oh, I do. Fuck you, game.
Thought you had me, huh?
You're so quiet until the plot needs it to be visible. Yeah, exactly. Oh god. Reload better, faster! Oh my god. Alright. Ah! Yes. Yes. Uh-oh. Oh shit! Okay, that was lucky because I pressed A also.
Let's just run!
Shit, we're cornered.
It's so shaky!
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. We can't hit shit! The camera will stop moving! What? Alright, hold on. Sorry, guys. I'm doing awful! That's bullshit. Oh! Gonna take some ibuprofen and lay down, and I'm cramping. Have a fun shoddy, BB. Aw, well, I will. I hope you feel better. I'm gonna take those cramps and punch them in their face, okay? Did I break that box over there? Fuck. God damn. Awful. Did I break that? Oh, okay. Camera, chill. What the fuck do you expect me to shoot? This game has gas minus G. Ass. No, it's pretty good, actually. Like, it's alright. I wouldn't say it's ass. Or should shoot in the eye or the head? Hold on, wait. Reloading, sir. Oh, everything die? Okay, I was like, what do you want me to do? Yeah, I feel better, Shotty.
He's gone!
We did it.
Leon!
Oh, that bitch is dead. I was in poo-poo water. Can you imagine the worst first day ever? It's like, you know, you're excited for your new job.
There's nothing here for you.
All of a sudden, the world's ending. Your town's filled with zombies and monsters. They're like the only cop left. Nobody fucking listens to you. The camera won't stop shaking. And top it all off. You fall in poo-poo water. Like, I have everything. That's probably the cherry on top. Like, I could deal with zombies, but
Why?
poop water? Killing me now. Pretty of the Resident Evil games, I mean. Yeah, it's not one of the best. It's one of the better spin-offs, I'd say. I think it's for what it's trying to do. It's fine. My complaint is, like, there's a lot of things that are better in this one, but a lot of things that are worse than the previous one, which is Umbrella Chronicles. So yeah, your boy, I don't know if you noticed, because you said the one based on, or like kind of like House of the Dead. There's two of them. This is the sequel. They improved a lot of the control stuff, but dude, they need to stop shaking that fucking camera. fight. Let's sell this. I don't want it. Get out of here. Get out of my inventory. You don't belong here. Get out of here. How's your night going, you boy? You working?
Leon! What happened?
I also appreciate the retelling, you know? Like, when this game came out, this was really the only other time they remade
Wait, you mean?
RE2, you know?
Not Ada.
So it's just kind of nice to revisit it.
You're losing a lot of blood. Don't
Man,
move.
my,
Remove the bullet.
office,
What's that?
well, cables
Just about to kill me.
everywhere right now, getting this thing working.
That's my problem.
I have a real Wii,
Fine.
and I have power cord, but this is my desk, and my desk area, like, it won't reach over here.
Oh,
My,
Make it
power
out of
strip.
this alive.
Power cable's over there. I have the HDMI cable,
I need your help.
the Elgato right here.
Can't do this.
I have a
alone.
RetroTink with the component cables from the Wii.
You're right.
And then I have that connected to an M Classic, which then connects to that HDMI cable, which goes to my Elgato. Then there's this shit, and then I'm wired in with my headphones. When you doing Typing of the Dead? Dude, I would actually love to do Typing of the Dead. I love typing. That's probably one of the dorkiest things that somebody could say. But like, I love touch typing.
Lucky us.
And I have House of the Dead Overkill. I do have a means to play the other House of the Dead, like the first one.
Let's go.
Let me see if I can get that working, because I would actually stream that. You know, you could use 2 small candles instead of center for the... Yeah, I've heard about that.
Leon?
To bar for the Wii.
Come
Yeah.
on. Let's just find her and get out of here.
But I have a sensor bar, so I might as well use that.
Yeah.
But I guess in a pinch, like if it
I
broke...
have a flashlight. What was that? Yeah. It can't be.
It's the Gammas! They're actually kind of cute. Froggers. Or froggies.
Careful in this water.
I'm like big right now. Froggy!
Would have some fair warning. We just
If you
can't
light enough
seem to catch
candles
breath in
using
this
the
place, huh?
Wii, you will summon a lawsuit by Nintendo. I believe it.
Said it.
They've sued for less.
More frogs!
Where? My god, I can't see shit!
You gotta go back.
Fuck off, frog. Bitch. God damn. Let me switch to this, I guess.
Go, man.
Oh shit, what was that? Pick up what? Pick up what? Okay. Camera, you are pissing me off, buddy.
Fine. You wanna play?
Okay. Before it turns around and I have to shoot these motherfuckers. Where they at? Where they at, though? Can I shoot you? No. Oh my god, this is too dark. This is too fucking dark.
Come on!
Why am I walking backwards? That seems like a bad idea here. Picture a Pikachu you did in kindergarten. They're gonna sue you for that? Yeah, probably. Feel like it's been, oh my god, like 29 years, but we found him. Boys, got him. How are you enjoying using the motion controls?
They're swimming towards us!
I would enjoy it more if the camera accommodated me. This shaky cam is not conducive to shooting.
Another
Oh yeah, that
guy?
Pikachu getting blowy from Misty. Oh, we all do the same one, right? Yeah, right.
I wonder what it means.
But yeah, the motion controls, they're fine. I mean, I like the Wii.
Hell out of here.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's tighter, if that makes sense, on PlayStation, but that wouldn't work with my setup right now. Fortunately, I tried it, and I'm fairly close to the Wii sensor bar, so I'm not like this, like I was like when I was playing Umbrella Chronicles. So I'm a little bit more relaxed now, which is nice. But like I said, this feels not as good. Oh shit! As the PS3 version, because I have the move. Everyone did. Yeah, dude. Yeah, see, he gets it. There's no skill involved in this.
We need to
What do I
break
do?
through.
Do you have a Wiimote zapper, like the plastic thing? No, I don't. I know what the zapper is. I don't have it.
It's all right. I don't see anything.
I have the nunchuck and the Wii remote. Which is funny, because I could have sworn before the Wii came out, they referred to it as the Wiimote. But nobody calls it that except me, I think. So I like saying the Wiimote. Oh, I thought that was gold.
Let's go that way.
Gimme. Okay, I got it.
Let's go up through here.
Hell yeah, brother. I'm definitely gonna need that, the herb spray. Healing spray. There's something back there. Stop wiggling the camera! There's too many of them!
This way.
Oh shit. Oh nice. Let's break my leg right here. Wait! Oh shit. Hey, got a grenade? Oh nice, let me throw one.
Here we go again.
Die!
You know what I mean.
How many TVs do you think Wiimotes have destroyed? Wiimotes don't destroy TVs. Dumb people that throw them do. See what I did there? But I don't know. I saw that one where it's like this dude just threw it like full strength at the TV. Like, you fucking idiot. It's like embedded in there too. I don't know. There probably is like an actual number on that. I'd say no more than 100.
Still in the sewers.
What do you think? More or less? Over or under? I need chapstick. This is important. It's almost as essential as having an ammo count, you know? Dinner. Just meowing at me to feed her, and I'm like, fine! And then I do it, and she just walks away. I'm like, you dickhead. Embedded? That shit was personal. Yeah, it looked like it was like intentional. Oh, fuck, wrong button. Like, it looked like they intentionally tried to fuck that thing up. I googled that, and Google said it's impossible to put an exact number. Yeah. Like, I don't even know how to estimate. I'm just guessing here. I'd say no more than 100. That's probably on the high end. Oh shit, I thought you were a zombie player with very nice legs. Hey girl. Yeah, I missed your stream today, Dick. What were you playing today? Did I hear you're playing Persona 5? You're playing Royal or regular? Ah, fuck!
It's him again. Run!
We just can't take this guy.
Nice.
There's no backing down now. Might as well fight. Now run!
Copy that.
Look, there's a light.
This place is crawling with these things.
You know.
Sherry?
Oh, damn, girl. Why's she not dead?
Sherry!
I was very tempted to emulate this and use mouse control just so it's easier, but that's for cheaters.
If we lose her this time, we'll never find her again.
Ah! Die froggy, die froggy, die froggy, die froggy. Okay.
Sherry! Where did she go?
Sherry, get the fuck back here! Sherry! Sherry? Oh. You know what's funny? My cat's name is Shuri. She probably thinks I'm snapping at her or something. I'd never talk to you that way, Shuri. Hey, can you give me, motherfucker, a chance to respond? React? Nintendo's waiting for you to emulate this to jump on the lawsuit. Oh, shit.
What's your intention here?
Hey, why does
Attention.
Annette look like Claire?
We just want to get out of the city alive.
Right? Right, Nintendo's just waiting.
Understand what's going on here. Now is not the time for us to be putting
Also,
guns on each other.
I'm not getting a Switch 2. I really like the decisions that they've been making. It's
So,
Claire was Annette all along. she looks like Claire kind of, doesn't she?
time for this.
Like, wait, which one's the real Claire?
You've seen a little girl.
She's about 10 years old. Her name is Sherry.
Yeah, fucking, she doesn't look very Annette-y. No, she doesn't. She looks like Claire.
Sherry is my daughter.
Did I say it?
What?
Kind of good. I'm gonna say.
I told her to hide
Oh
in
yeah, with the
station.
game code cartridges.
William
I don't even
was
mind the
after
price as much as everything else that they're doing. I mean, 450 is definitely high. I don't feel good paying that.
Sherry.
But it's like basically a PS4 competitor on hardware. It's like, what are you guys doing?
Held to protect G.
I don't like Mario that much.
The hell is a G?
The G virus. It's the next generation virus that William and I developed
Next gen.
at our daughter's expense.
Next generation virus?
He does like the Metal Gear thing, like Solid Snake. They're like, oh, it's a Metal Gear. Metal Gear?
Rapidly evolved
Oh,
to
it's
transcendental levels.
the virus. It's the Fox Die virus. Fox Die?
Or so it was supposed to be.
My name's Meryl. Meryl? Oh, he's getting fucked up. Someone will need to hack those to prove it's a bad idea to continue to use them.
This is Hunk.
Yeah, like this is one case where I actually hope piracy wins. This is gross. And they're gonna charge like 80 bucks. I think it said in some cases, correct me if I'm wrong. Did I not see $89.99 for some games?
G.
Or am I conflating that a little bit with something else? It's fine. I meant to say inflating, but it might work. But anyway,
flawed. Even if you survive the seroconversion with G, you become nothing more.
I saw
than a
80, not
puppet
89 yet. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, still gross, but the fact that the game is even on the fucking cartridge, I'm like, fuck you. Why do you charge more? For literally, like,
people with a genetic
I don't know.
similar to his own
Like, what's the
will
point?
stand to birth a superior offspring.
Did anyone see Canada being pressured into becoming a 51st state? That's not gonna fucking happen.
I've got unfinished business.
People that think it's gonna happen are.
You've got to be kidding me.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
If the embryo's been implanted,
Speaking of virus, everyone prep now. I saw a new form of COVID might hit us. US. Great, it takes me. I think it's more to do with Nintendo not wanting people to keep their old software. What? What do you mean? I literally have a Nintendo 64 next to me. You can't stop me, Nintendo! I'll abstain from purchases. Oh shit. Got a critical.
I'm scared.
Stop fucking running from us! Follow the grown-ups, you dum-dum.
Sherry, stop!
Jerk, the fuck back here! Oh, sorry. I'm gonna call her something else.
Everything's
Should I call her,
It's us.
What's going on?
They always take down previous console servers ASAP to strip people's ability to download their previously bought software and get updates. That's a gross practice. I hate
I
that.
don't believe this.
I'm going to pirate your shit.
How are we gonna kill this thing?
Like, you're making it so much harder on me, you know what I mean? Like I'm not really like that. I tend to feel it's mostly immoral, especially for newer games to emulate, right? But if it's a game where it's like the devs aren't going to see that money anyway because it's been 20 years, or it's something like this where like the game is used and it costs like $300 fucking, you know? But they're making a case for me, man. In 10 years, Switch 2 servers will go down. Those game cards will be living. Yeah, dude, exactly. Like, because of this. Ah, nice. Oh, nice. Can I even let my friends borrow my game cards? Can I borrow my friends? Can I trade it in? Can I buy used? No, right? It's like a one-time purchase on that thing, right? Or is it more like a key where it's like I have a digital version, and as long as that's in there, it'll launch it. But it's still like on the console. I don't fucking know. I don't even know how this is gonna work. I hate it. Ah, wait. The camera! Is this a skill? This is like blind luck. Okay, that was kind of skill. Oh shit! Whoa! I'm gonna do the Crash Bandicoot. How much if I throw a grenade at him? God damn, dude! Can a nigga get some reaction time? I don't know how the DM works with the cards, but it seems so bad. Yeah, it does. This is one of the worst things I've ever seen in AAA gaming. Oh shit! I pressed B, you bitch! Sorry, I had the nerve to reload. Oh, god damn it. This is fucked up. I feel like I hit that. I'm out of herbs. I'm gonna die! Get the game over up in this bitch. Yeah, I just gotta calm my titties. Or not. What the fuck, game? There's like inevitable damage. You guys have to wait and... This is awful. I'm actually hating this boss right now. Yo, Joe, what do you think of the pic I posted saying Godzilla is the new Ghost Rider? I think it looks cool. I like that kind of shit. There's gotta be some defensive move. This game isn't the QTE dodge. I think depending on the attack, if I attack at a certain point, I think I can counter it. But like, there's no indication. I think I have to figure it out. You know, clearly when he's running at me, because I've done it a couple times. But I like to think if I have a submachine gun on you and I'm hitting you as you're in that animation, just do it for me. Just do it. Godzilla's pennant stare is gonna go crazy. Oh, it's probably gonna be like, there's like, bah! It's gonna be like a pennant atomic breath. I wasn't ready. And the camera wiggling like this is not helpful. See, like that. But he's gonna run at me right now. No, I did not see the Until Dawn movie. I kind of want to see it. Probably watch it at some point this week. I think it's on digital. I'll rent it. Yeah. It had one of the craziest deaths I've seen. No spoilers, don't tell me. I'll check it out. Did you like it? This fight is bullshit. This fight's mean. I'll get through it. I'm just annoyed. Do I still have my old ammo? I do.
We've got to do something.
I think I was doing better towards the end. I think if I just like wait a little bit. I can share a website. I watch movies and TV shows if you want. No, it's okay. Like I was saying for games, I prefer renting. No, I'm not shaming anybody or anything. I don't care. But I'll pay for it.
Everything's all right.
Like if it's streaming somewhere, or I don't mind throwing like $4 to rent.
What's going on?
But I totally understand. Like there's some movies that I'm like, I'm not gonna pay for that shit. Like I'm trying to think of an example of a movie that I would pirate. I mean old shit, sure.
Sherry, run! How the hell am I gonna kill this thing? I'm hurting it. Keep aiming at the mouth.
I can't see.
This boss fight is bullshit. Claire, you have a gun too, you know? Yeah, I know, right? Claire, baby. I'm just scummy like that with movies and shows. Oh, you're fine, dude. I'm not calling you scummy or anything. I mean, you can share it if you want. Who knows? Maybe there's like some like I'm trying to think of an example. Why am I kicking ass this time? You're not scummy. We'll find it.
Use it!
Use what?
The valve on the ceiling!
Oh, then he comes back with like a second health bar, I think. Because actually, I'm pretty sure this first phase was fine for me too. Psych!
Talking about.
Motherfucker. Oh yeah, reload. Woo!
That was close. Can't take much more of this.
Bullshit. That's bullshit. You motherfucker!
There, the canister.
Like I said before, it kind of reminds me of like...
Canister now!
You know when your mom tells you to go to your room and she's like blocking the hallway and you're like, I know she's gonna hit me. I fucking know it. Ah, the butthead does. God damn it. Worst fucking boss fight ever. This is terrible. Like little Jaden Smith. Like, I want to go home! I hate it here! I'm doing it! I'm doing the thing. Do I have to shoot this? Oh, wrong button. I'm out of herbs. I'm out of herbs and spices. I missed the shotgun. Like this, what do you want me to do? Well, fuck me, right? Anything, hold on, let me read that in a second. Anything I make, videos, music, etc. Wait. Anything I make, encourage pirating. Going out. Oh, you're fine, dude. But, you know, you're a guy. So for like corporations and companies, like I get it, they're fine probably. But for the teams of people that work on it, they are like feed their families and stuff, you know? Like I understand. And there's even like a lot of game developers too that feel that way too. But like, hey, it's pirated. It's fine. You guys can't. We just want people to play it. I get it. I get it. That's why I'm saying I'm not judging you or anything. One of my best friends, he has a Plex server with like everything on it. I'll peek in there every now and then. This is the worst fucking boss fight yet, guys. Like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. Like, I'm hitting inside of his fucking mouth. I'm shooting him at the back of the throat. Giggity. I'm low on ammo, and we're getting low on patience. As a creative, I respect your opinion. So scared. Sick of this alligator. Nice. What up? Oh yeah. You're the only other person I know that redeems that is Bloody. I thought it was him for a sec. That's like one of my favorite redeems. Come on! Come on, you're almost dead. Why don't you just die already? Okay, oh my god.
I hope Sarah didn't go too far.
Fuck Sherry right now.
She should be okay.
Me,
I think she knows now that we're on her side.
me herbs. Yeah, I could have done that. I just didn't have any fucking time. Too busy. Okay, I did terrible. Score low. B. Your enemies eliminated B. Whatever. Got C probably. Yeah. Or crocodile, even though it's an alligator. I don't know. Trying to be funny here. Beginning. Do I get like minimum ammo? This. Oh nice, I can start upgrading some shit. Handgun, honestly, you might. Oh. Bowgun sucks. Magnum's always great. You're fine. I don't gotta touch you. Perfect. Perfect. Down to the last minute detail. Finish. And, you know, I'm not happy to, but I could always replay levels if I need more. You can tell the difference between the two whether you see it in a while or later. Whether you see, yeah, that's funny. I like that. I didn't mean to do that. I was trying to tighten my phones. Alright. What are you up to, you boy? You working tonight? And you didn't answer. Did you like Until Dawn movie? Chronicles. Okay, it does give me like a minimum. Nice. Oh, nice. Hold on. Bongo Cat has an item.
Sherry, we managed to escape from the underground sewer. Only
That's the lab, right?
Sherry
Sewer?
became sick. She
Hive.
told us that while she'd been wandering the
The
depths of
nest?
the sewers, she had been implanted with a G embryo. But it wasn't too late. We began our journey into the.
It was alright. It was different from the game. Yeah, I heard it's like I saw that trailer and I was like, that's not fucking Until Dawn. But I heard they try to tie it in to the game. No details, but because I'm curious, because I really like Until Dawn, and I don't mind a movie that differentiates from the game as long as it's like entertaining. You know, like of course, I still haven't gotten the Resident Evil movie I want, but I like that Resident Evil series of movies. They're fucking dumb, but they entertain me. They taste good. It's junk food, you know?
Do you miss your mommy and daddy? No. They're always more preoccupied.
It's rated R, right?
Research.
It looks like a PG-13 horror movie, which those I do tend to hate. They tied it in
Come on, we
as
better
the
hurry.
same.
She's getting
name.
worse.
Okay.
Well, you know what I mean. Like Resident Evil games have nothing to do with the movies have like nothing to do with the games basically, outside of like the first or second one. And they kind of just go off and do their own thing.
Promise we'll be back.
I saw that trailer and I was like,
It won't be long.
doesn't look like Until Dawn. It's called Until Dawn. But it ain't acting like Until Dawn.
We'll have to search the rooms one by one.
Wait, I'm picking up something. A signal.
Wait,
A radio signal?
I'm picking up something. Too much shaky cam.
Annette?
Is Sherry there?
Hey, Net.
Yeah.
Hi. Tell her I say hi.
Attacked.
Tell her I say hi.
She's in critical condition.
Hi, Net.
Where are you now? Hey, you still there?
Be careful, especially with that woman,
That
What
bitch.
woman?
Ada.
Not spoiler, but it is bloody. Okay, thank you.
To
Yeah.
retrieve the G sample.
Nice. I like bloody horror movies.
The researchers and obtaining information about Umbrella. She'll do whatever it takes to accomplish her purpose. She's
Hell, man. Depending on when I'm done with this, I might watch it tonight.
I think you're wrong.
Hey, I'm gonna head out. You guys have a good night. All right, thanks, Dick. Thanks for hanging out, dude. Peace out, Dick.
Annette. Damn it, she hung up on me.
You streaming tomorrow? Yeah, you stream every day.
Look, we don't have time for her right
Night. Mwah.
Finding vaccine for Sherry is her top
Folks,
priority.
night, folks.
Let's
That's
go.
all, folks. Peace out, bro.
now. You've got to be kidding me.
I didn't think they'd be here, too.
That's on you, Claire. Ah! I saw something. Hello, no, not tomorrow. Saturday charity thing. Oh, okay. Well, have fun at that. And nice. Charity's awesome. Hell yeah, brother. You get some rest for your charity thing. And thanks for hanging out. I appreciate you. Oh shit, not another boss. Oh fucking damn game. Just got sucker punched by a zombie.
Come on, Tritty. You want some of this?
I actually pushed that out of luck. I pressed on a different button. Oh no! Give me the gold! Give me the gold! Give me the gold! Got it.
There's nowhere to hide.
I'm just the fucking back of the goddamn skull. I hate you.
Leon.
Ada. Ada, how you get so fly? Ada, how you get so fly? Ada. Damn, still? Push a button, push a button, push a button, push a button. Man, I aim like I do in real life. Which is alright, you know.
At least we got him away from Sherry. But there's no way we can take him down.
We need a plan.
We're running out of time.
Oh shit.
What the hell? What was it? A plant? A human?
It's a plumen.
I don't think it's either one. And we don't have time to figure it out.
Yeah, let's go.
Bitch. Damn it, this game. Load everything. I ain't got time for shit. Look, some of these might open and give me like they're gonna drop down, aren't they? Well, I'll read that in a moment, my good sir. Alright, what? Running out of time, you'll never make it. Oh. You'll never make it! Never make it! Never make it! Can't you see? You'll never make it!
Guess it's not coming after us.
I adore that movie, dude. That's like, I don't know, man. Maybe top 15 movies in general.
Sherry?
No, I'm sure he followed
Top
us.
10 comedies for sure.
See? I was right.
You were doing Kung Pao, right? Fuck. Wait, where's my shotgun? There it is. Fuck you guys. I'm going home. That's bullshit and you know it, game. Fuck. Shoot! Ah! Yeah, the thing with Uniboob woman said, yeah. Oh no, not Uniboob. That was Ling. The wee woo, wee. That chick.
So what exactly is our plan?
I'm open to suggestions.
We have to figure out a way to kill him. He's here. It's so hot in here.
You're right. I can quote most of that movie.
If we could just push him over. Alright, come on now, Frenchie.
I don't know why I feel I have a better chance with.
Let's finish this once and for all. Lure him to the edge.
Okay.
It's gonna end right here, Frenchie.
Is he calling him Frenchie?
Just a little more.
This is terrifying.
Now.
Oh shit. Ah!
Are you alright?
Reloading!
Barely.
Like the air got knocked out of her. She's just like like that one wine girl.
Where'd he go?
The grapes, stomping grapes chick. I don't know what we call that one. That's a 20-year-old video now. Feel old yet?
It's a control panel. Probably for the blast furnace.
Ah. Holy shit. Little gear. Oh shit! Gimme! I got it.
Self-destruct.
I can't believe this.
Sitting ducks in here.
I think it's old enough to be legal age, not old enough to drink. It might be. I don't know. We had, like, it's just. I think YouTube. Well, that's like what, 2004?
Good.
That was a very early, like, video, and who knows? It might have been recorded prior to that.
Watch out! There aren't any handrails.
Even better.
Right? There it is.
There.
Got it. Okay. Oh god. Oh god. Fucking hit me with the why I oughta. Oh, motherfucker.
Aim for his head.
Dude, just stop moving the camera.
Come on, is that all you got?
Probably not. What if I use a shotgun? This is fucked, guys. Okay, alright, try that.
He looks angry.
Yeah, no shit. Alright, keep it up.
Right here.
Keep it up.
What you gonna do?
Is he summoning something? Oh!
Push.
Come on. Come on, brother. Okay. Victory! Bro, watch out. There's lava. Hey, what up, Bo? How you doing, man? I'm playing on the actual Wii. One of my favorite old internet videos is the news part. Oh, they get to the bug just battle and he calls the town a country-ass town. Yeah. Think of the, what the fuck is that? That guy? The black dude? Yeah, I know that one. How you doing, Bo? Streaming tonight? A lipstick missile? Shut up. That's funny. Is that even canon? I've never seen that before.
Just another one of Umbrella's failed experiments.
Side! Oh, nice. Ada! Here's my girlfriend.
Ada.
This
Ada.
is low. There isn't much time left. Leon, you have to get out of here.
No.
Leon, get out of here!
It's strange. I barely know you.
Okay. Nah, no streaming for me for the past week. Been too busy with work shit. Might stream this Elden Ring shit tomorrow night though. Is it out tomorrow? Nice. Or is that today? I don't even know. But yeah, I feel that. There's been several weeks where I couldn't stream just because of work shit.
Returned.
It's life. I hate it. Even tonight, I almost didn't stream just because I was like tired of shit, but I'm still trying to get to this goddamn franchise. So many REs. Abs. No, not really. They get an A? Nice. Life takes over sometimes. It does. It's just the reality of it, you know. It is what it is. We do what we gotta do. I only have 4,000. Honestly, I'd like to fully upgrade the handgun. The handgun's kind of being awesome right now. Can I upgrade anything? No. Capacity would be pretty sick, and reload speed. But yeah, this game's low-key kind of grindy. But I ain't gonna do it. I ain't gonna do it. I only got like 8 hours to stream this. No. I just want to rush through it now. Not that I'm not enjoying it. It's just so many games I want to stream. Like right now. I gotta eat my veggies, and that's RE. No, that's wrong to put it that way, because I love this franchise. Oh shit. Oh, that's right. It's not to fight Birkin. God damn it. Yeah, this game, yeah, so your boy, if you're still here, no Jill, if I'm not mistaken. It covers Operation Javier, which is like a RE4 prequel. It shows what Leon and Krauser were doing in their secret agent years before RE4 takes place. Then it has a remake of 2, which is what we're doing right now, and then it has Code Veronica. You're gonna throw liquor at me, I know it. Don't get up. We're gonna get up.
Out of my way! Move!
Oh.
Leon, they're coming from behind too.
I'll show you come from behind. Oh, damn.
Really have to waste my bullets on you guys?
No, just give me the points, please. I think I wasted the grenade. I already love my grenades.
If Sherry's all right.
She ran all the way here and did just fine. Look, it won't take much longer. She'll be all right.
Yeah, I guess.
I think those are zombies over there. I can't tell because the camera's shaking. This is not a high def system. Even though I'm upscaling. Claire, baby girl. Baby girl, you gotta shoot them too, okay?
We need to find the entrance to the lab.
Yeah, let's go. We're running out of
Yeah.
time.
All right.
I guess this won't be that easy, huh?
I'm gonna kick their asses.
I mean, I'm gonna. Uh-oh. Oh shit, man, that fucker started running out of... And that... Oh no, the hunters! Wait. Oh, that's G. Birkin.
William! Don't you recognize me? I'm your wife, Annette.
This is probably the hottest Annette's ever been. Oh my god, look at his cute little face! He's like...
William, I'm sorry,
Look, Glock.
but I've got to put an end to G.
just rolls a natural 20.
Annette.
Where's the blood?
She's
Oh,
growing even stronger. If you don't stop.
that's not how you load a gun.
Sherry.
Annette, please. We need to find the vaccine.
It looks
On
cool.
the bottom floor. Please. Help Sherry. Tell her
You'd have...
that
that-
even though
You should have tilted the gun sideways.
I have always
I did that. The second time I went shooting with my gun, I was like, wait a minute.
Let's go.
All right.
We need to find a way down to the lowest level. What is this place?
Here...
Get
It's moving.
The natural instincts kicked in second time? Yeah.
Looks harmless.
I was fighting against my nature. Remember, I'm only half black.
This way.
Okay.
My Mexican side wanted to shoot it in the air and go, yeah! Oh shit. What are you looking at, Leon? Just go. Yeah, Magnum ammo. This game's stressing me out now. I don't know if you guys notice. I don't feel safe. So you tilted it quarter way instead of fully sideways? First time, yeah. And the second time I was like,
This way.
Gimme. Wait, there are liquors here in the game, the original one. Ooh, I'll take that. Spitters.
Which way should we go?
Let's head straight.
It's so quiet.
Yeah. Not to mention.
The liquor's a girl's best friend? In theory, yeah. Except it depends on the form of the liquor, because I'm pretty sure the more advanced ones, they get like serrated tongues, which I don't think that would feel very good. Like, I don't have a vagina, but I imagine I wouldn't want that anything.
Leon, take a look at this.
Not speaking for for them, but it sounds painful.
Isn't that?
Yep, that's a liquor.
It came through there.
I knew it. Yeah, boy, you nasty.
It's coming.
Where is it?
Yeah, it's those ones. Dude, what the fuck?
Shoot it!
Try it, dick. Uh oh. Oh shit.
It could be here any second.
Just saying what we're all thinking.
What did this?
It looks like a nest.
God damn it!
Boy, you working on any new tracks?
Oh my god!
It's huge!
Hell yeah, Joey Stream! What up, Brewster? How you doing, buddy? Good stream today, by the way.
Hey, Claire! This is
Joey,
it.
did you get a haircut? No, I'm wearing, that's funny. I'm wearing headphones. How's your night going, buddy? Steven has the worst camera out of any Unreal shooter I've ever fucking played. And that is fantastic. Oh, that's awesome. Oh shit! I got something. What'd I get? Okay. Damn it. God damn, I haven't got a chance to read chat. Alright. I was working on new tracks. I got a new one, a new one that came out, and I'm going to record a couple tomorrow, maybe, and re-record one I already put out. Nice, fantastic. Oh, good shit, dude. You're watching SLC Punk? Never seen it. Damn, Joey, where is this accuracy when we play normal shooters? I don't know. Maybe accuracy better for not getting fucking team killed. Also, I'm figuring this out. It's like I gotta get with the program, you know? Like, look at this. It's like trying to play while somebody's playing, or like, what are some of those found footage movies? Whoa, man. No, it's like trying to play Unreal Shooter while through like Cloverfield. Remember how shaky that shit was? From way up the cliff, all by yourself, and you can't prove otherwise. I don't know. I think I have witnesses. Didn't Trevor kick you? Oh, my fair. Oh shit. I was angry with Trevor for like a whole day. Yeah, it happens.
We've got no time for this.
My signal. Run. Now.
Yeah, I knew you were mad, huh? I do remember that. God damn, camera.
They're blocking our way.
Everything in that? No? Oh. Because he kicked me out when the random... Because he kicked me out when the random team killed. I caught the bullet because I was being a bunghole. I feel like I'm mixing two stories in my head. Because I remember those one time it was me, Frank, Trevor, and a random. And I think... the random was team killing, and the random was kind of doing his own thing, but he's doing side missions, and Trevor was like, no, we need you, so he kicked him. Don't blame the camera for user error. First of all, dude, this camera is fucking annoying. Like, I'll admit, some of it is me, but it's impossible to be precise when the camera's like I said, it's like, it reminds me of every found footage movie when the dude grabs the camera, he's like, record everything! And then they just, you know, oh, you can't see my apartment right now, but like, yeah, that's what they're doing right now. I totally deserve it on the video. It's okay. It's how you say I love you. Nice bullet in the back. No, you're fine, bro.
Careful.
Oh, could you even hear me when I picked up the camera? The mic's right here. Oh boy. Uh-oh. Yo, you can pick up my camera anytime. What kind of camera you got? Damn, dude. Gimme. Shoot the plant vagina. What are you up to? Oh yeah, I never saw SLC Punk. by the way. Also, my ear itches. Talk about that Fujitsu. Oh, nice. I want a Polaroid camera. That's what hipsters get. Wait, there's something down here. What can I pick up? What is that? What is that? What is that? Get it, get it, get it, get it! Okay. Really? Oh. It's classic. Matthew Lillard is in it. It's all about the beginnings of a punk scene back in Salt Lake City.
We're running out of time.
It's an outcast story. Was the sequel any good? I know they made a sequel to it when I was in art school, I want to say. Does that sound right? Like 2009, 2010? Ah, that was so long ago! Dying. Yeah, the sequel's good. I never saw Train Spotting either. Just trying to think of like what like my druggy roommate was into at that time. Just the sequel's okay. Is it the same cast? Or does Matthew Lillard like OD or something in the movie? I don't know. I'll watch it someday. Do you recommend it? You think I'll like it? God damn it. Fuck off. Have you seen Requiem for a Dream? I have. That's a sad-ass movie. Camera! It's like I keep shooting where he was. I can't lead if the camera's shaking like this. My God. You're an artsy and neurotic person. You'll love SLC Punk. Yeah, I think. Nice. Yeah, I'll check it out. It's on my list. There's lots of shit I need to see. Oh shit. Oh shit. Pivot Kenobi roll. Oh yeah, that would look cool. I saw a trailer for it. Does somebody come out of a fucking toilet in that movie?
I don't care what it takes. We're gonna make it back
You're
in time.
back. Gotta go, Brother Vaughn. Quit sucking, by the way. Go bother Vaughn. Oh, okay, okay. You quit sucking. Yeah, tell him I said right in his face, okay? And tell him I said bring back Returnal.
We have to hurry.
And you know, he's gonna say this. He's gonna say, "Oh my God." Otherwise, tripping. He's not gonna play it. I guarantee you he's gonna say something to that effect.
What's going on?
Is that William?
And if he says that, tell him it's like, hey, he said you'd say that. He's gonna say it like that. Oh my God. Or. Uh-oh. Yeah, that was a lot of damage. Do I have an herb spray? No! Fuck, did I have to do all that again? He said he caught it with his butt. Nice. I have to do that again. There's like an actual checkpoint you can continue from. Okay, okay, this isn't so bad. Yeah, I'm out of everything still, but that's okay.
We have to hurry.
Caught it with his butt, nice. He's looping up for me.
God damn it! What's going on?
Is that William?
I don't know how to avoid that, buddy. I wasted that. You said to remind him to play Returnal when you and him hang out. I think he's trying to put responsibility on you. Totally toxic behavior. You should dump him. Oh, we're not together. We're just what was I gonna say? We're like best friends with benefits. No, tell him I'm sick of him and we're over. You changed, man.
It's Jim.
Only because the system is down.
Okay, I'm gonna have my way with him. Dude, you can have him. Yeah. He's your problem now. Tell him to use that military planning of his. It's not my responsibility to remind you. I've been reminding him. Tell him he's gaslighting me. Sloppy seconds? Yeah, something like that. He's your problem now.
Is he dead?
Yeah, he's dead.
Motherfucker. Alright, I got it this time. Inconceivable. Alright. I gotta beat this motherfucker again. I've been trying to teach this lesson, old man.
Hurry!
I skipped this. Can I? Oh. I think he licked you in the butthole, then you died. Yeah. Caught me right in the gooch.
Is that William?
You fucking bastard. I shot you.
It's Jim.
Only because the system is down.
Strawberry. Motherfucker. Okay, I gotta slow my roll. Getting a little too antsy. Okay, he's dead. Alright, gonna lurk and doom scroll. Love you. Love you too, dude. I think you're pissing him off, calling him William. He's a little. Like, it's Bill, damn it. Oh. Sorry, chat's all the way over there. Because I have to back up because of the, you know. The whee!
We need to reboot the system.
Thank God.
Otherwise, we won't be able to get back to Sherry.
What the?
What the fuck?
Did he transform?
Yeah.
I thought we killed him.
Sounds like an evil bear. Are you winning, BB? Something like that. I'm getting through it. How you doing? You feeling any better?
Here he comes! I don't believe it!
Wait. I wasn't ready.
Just keep shooting!
Okay, alright.
Go! We need to find another door.
I wasn't ready, game. Slow down.
What's evolved?
Just chilling now? Okay. There's no laws of Pokemon, Batman. No Joker. No Joker, no.
What are we gonna do?
Just keep swimming. This camera is atrocious. Hold on. I can't read. I'll come back to you. Man, he did a fucking like ninja kick. Oh boy. Down to the handgun now. Oh fuck. Wish me luck. Says, oh yeah. I'm scared to reload. I'm scared to reload. I'm scared to reload. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. Do you ever know how the Wii got its name? No, because I remember at one point it was like called the Nintendo Revolution. I think that was like its code name. I don't know how they settled on the Wii. Is it because it's like, oh, we as gamers can all play it? Yeah. Oh shit. God damn it, game. At least a checkpoint. No, I don't have any fucking herb sprays either. The Wii got its name because it symbolizes two people sitting side by side. Oh yeah, because I remember they did the bowing in the logo. That's really cute. What's not cute is this fucking boss fight and the lack of healing items.
Where is he?
He can't be far. Be careful.
Give me some. Give me something. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Fuck. What the fuck am I supposed to do, you dickhead? What do you do in the Wii version of MarioWare? MarioWare? I don't know. At least start me off on this fight. Is it? Is it? Okay, okay, okay. Fight for the eye? Do I just shoot him in this little white head?
This is crazy.
Whose dick do I have to suck for a green herb right now? Gonna lurk and read. What are you reading, Shawty? The same book? The same book that sounded really cool?
Be careful.
Also, thank you for the lurk. Bang for the mouth? What do I do? His little pussy mouth? What do I do? Ah, shit! Oh, there's an eye right there. Do I shoot the eye? What the fuck do you want me to do, game? This is awful. Uh-oh. Oh, that works somehow.
We can see what would happen if this thing ever got out.
We need to finish him off right here. Leon!
I'm taking you down.
Oh, no, 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 This game reminded me of when Leon did the most useless backflip in RE4. Yeah, that was a good one though. Like he does a backflip and he could have just like moved to the side or something.
Gotta be kidding. Get him bigger. This is crazy.
God damn it. Alright, that's a mistake right there. I think I need to just wait for him to jump and then shoot him.
Where is he?
He can't be far. Be careful.
I don't think he's like actually hurting me there, which is good. I don't know where to shoot him here. Like the weak spot is not apparent, and he's gonna kill me. Dude, I'm about to look this shit up. I don't give a fuck. And I need to, I'm gonna take a little break anyway. I'll be right back, guys. This is annoying me. Here's you saw a video where it was that scene where Leon was doing backflip and the song Hiya by Creed was playing to the person commenting. The person commenting was yelling, yes, nice. I'll be right back. I'm gonna use the bathroom. I'm gonna go cheat and look up how to beat this guy. And yeah.
Difficulty? Fuck you! Gotta lower these nuts on me. Dicks. Dicks. Dicks.
Oh shit, he's eating her butt. He's eating her butt. Don't eat my butt.
It's the FBI, motherfucker. Open up.
Catch. Oh shit! Later, Prince. No, I did not. No, I did not. Ew. Ew. Damn, dude. What the fuck were you drinking? Thank you. Gang, gang. Gang, gang. These nuts. Gang, gang.
Fat takes a steak. No.
Sucks about a shotgun ammo, but there'll be more. You know. Wait, what the fuck?
I barely know you, but you seem cool. Here you go. What?
This is amazing. Oh, what up, Salt? Do you go by Salt or Tofu? I've been teeter-tottering. How's your day going? Paint me like one of your French girls. Can I? Promise?
It does create even more backtracking. You can come for the price of $6.99. I mean, why can't I come and then get paid? Grandfather clock appears to be broken. Stop ticking altogether. Is this not the one? LMAO. I mean, look at me. I'm already a content creator. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a good one, but I dip my toe in. And I could dip something else in, if you know what I'm saying. Let's give Tofu a shout out.
Am I going the right way? Wait, no. No, I can't go up. Why can't I look up and go there? I'm trying. Don't you dare. Don't you dare fail me, game. Don't you fucking dare fail me. This is on you, not me. Fuck! Fucking bitch. I can't aim up. How am I supposed to go there if I can't look there? I thought I was going the right way.
He's coming out of the glory hole.
Get back in your glory hole. chicken.
The cock is going in the glory hole.
In Soviet Russia, cock beats you.
Yeah, beat his ass, beat his ass. Oh, glory hole.
He's in Zordon, he's coming out of some sort of intergalactic glory hole.
Shut the fuck up.
Okay, alright. Yeah, right. Hello, egg on my face. Crumpets. These are scones.
How many are there?
Well, I'm American. Biscuits!
I agree with all city improvement plans.
I agree with Jay. Take that shirt off. Give me some money.
To know you approve.
Give me money, I'll take my shirt off.
Finally, all went free. At least
I did.
you
did. But that wasn't on the table at the time. You're just being a good friend.
You lose everything you worked for your entire life. But I don't have to tell you what that's like. It really makes me wonder.
Is that good enough for you?
Time you spent in that
My shirt's
arm
off.
and the burden to you.
We're taking a quick break. I ain't taking a break for shit. Alright, my shirt's off. I didn't hear any of that. I was too busy fucking stripping for you guys. Somebody clip that. I'm screaming, Joey. Yes. Oh, so it is this. It really? I don't know. I don't think I might have seen it, but I didn't register it. First one. Period. I was not aware. Thank you for teaching me. Now I know. And knowing's half the battle. The other half is violence and murder. What am I doing? Alright. Shit. Check the DMs. Just sending me. Oh my god, you're wearing a hoodie. Yeah, it's my lucky hoodie. Overnight. That was cool. Wanna watch it with me awkwardly till the comedy comes in? No, I'll probably have my penis in my hand. Thanks for very often though. Fuck was not on your side tonight? No, it was not. Neither was Skill. I fucking suck today. Who's live? We got Lil B Montana playing Silent Hill 2. Got London Lotus playing Pummel Party. You got Pig Madison playing Quiet Pace. You got Super Sleepy playing GTA 3. Shoot him with the oh head. You get over here. Shoot you with the dick.
Any more tricks up your sleeve?
I will keep them coming.
Man, I am thoroughly enjoying this already, and it's been like 10 seconds.
Yeah, our brother's dead. Sorry to break the news to you this way. But it's okay. Hey. If you need anything, okay? I'll be here for you, okay? We're gonna get through this, alright? Whatever you need, babe. Whatever you need. He looked pretty dead, yeah. The guy was purple, okay? Okay, you need a shoulder to cry on. Mine's always open.
Pick me when you need me. Oh shit! Why did that scare me? No! Oh, I jumped a little bit. That's pathetic.
Heyo. Ew. Damn, dude. What the fuck were you drinking? You rocking it.
Don't touch me. Oh fuck. What? Don't look at me. Don't look at me. You saw nothing. I meant to do that. Without her face. From inside box, scent of mommy. Maybe true mother there. Stone box hard. It hurt. Steel rope in the way. Can't see mother because 4 stones. Yeah, not only is like half my friends' grammar bad, they also don't use punctuation. So I feel like I have to read their text like this sometimes. Not naming names. Still would. Oh god. Attack on Titan. Yeah, I still gotta get on that. Oh shit, he's eating her butt. He's eating her butt. Don't eat my butt. Oh. Alright.
Like break the TV?
Daddy, I'm sorry!
You the man now, dog. Sean Connery. No, one of my favorite lines in the whole franchise of 007 is the Dr. Schmidt and Western, and you've had your checks. He like shoots it in the back twice. Like, my man. I must be dreaming. But this game is less Sean Connery and more, hello, baby. I'll make you Randy.
I'm in a room full of gold bullion and bearer bonds. Must be worth hundreds of millions.
Here, try. This is for you. A Hawk Tua for you. Oh no, where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going. Come through. Oh shit! Hey. Okay. Oh shit. Oh shit. Alright, joke's on you. I'm into this. Reboot. Reboot! Boop, boop. You remember that reference? Yeah, I knew you would, buddy. Joey. It was like 18 gigs for me, I think, on my PlayStation.
Blake,
something crazy like that.
Didn't repair it or even a simple bypass, and I'm your man.
If any of you take on any damage, get back to me ASAP, and I'll help you out.
Brother!
I'm not carrying any dead bodies back.
I have the recessive genes.
I'm locked, loaded, and ready to make shit dead.
Blah, blah, nigga. Alright, let's go.
Are we gonna do the anime voice competition thing right now? We're gonna be super cringe.
Oni-chan.
Oni-chan. Chotomate. Iku.
Uru-uru. Oh, nasally and gross like that.
Am I going the right way? Wait, no. No, I can't go up. Why can't I look up and go there? I'm trying. Don't you dare. Don't you dare fail me, game. Don't you fucking dare fail me. This is on you, not me. Fuck! Fucking bitch. I can't aim up. How am I supposed to go there if I can't look there? I thought I was going the right way.
Yeah, our brother's dead. Sorry to break the news to you this way. But it's okay. Hey. If you need anything, okay? I'll be here for you, okay? We're gonna get through this, alright? Whatever you need, babe. Whatever you need. He looked pretty dead, yeah. The guy was purple, okay? It's okay. You need a shoulder to cry on. Mine's always open.
All right, everybody. I'm back. I sent you something. I sent you the backflip in your. I can't read. I sent you the backflip video. Discord. And if you want to see it, I'll check it out. But first.
Oh wow, dude, she's
First,
like farted blood out. She's like, bleh.
some
It's like a pool.
Is you gonna pick me up? I'm gonna do some shout outs. Let's do some shout outs. I want to do some shout outs, guys. Want some shout outs? Let's see. We're still in the outbreak. I mean, hi everyone. Hey, your boy. Everybody, check out your boy. This motherfucker affiliated, son. Did you check your dashboard? What's your average at? Oh yeah, this is from that one stream I didn't get to catch. They're pretty cozy. Boy. Yeah, that's loud. Ah! My ears! My ears! Okay. Oh. Nice. Who else is here? Well, he's not here anymore. Lurking. Oh, he might be. Yeah, he's doom scrolling and lurking. Oh shit! Deadwolf is up in this bitch. Let's give Deadwolf a shout out. How you doing, man? Sucking at this game right now, as you do. How you doing, man? Everybody, literally my best friend. Check his shit out. He plays a lot. He's like the variety streamer right now. You know, a lot of Monster Hunter, a lot of Fortnite, Repo, Heroes of the Storm, Morrowind. Or was Oblivion you were streaming? Yep. That was me doing ad libs for a song using whippets. Oh my god, dude. Don't do whippets. Drugs are. I mean, look, do you? But whippets are terrible for you. But, also, another one of my friends doing some work for a migration. I don't know what that means. What are you migrating? Is this like work? Like your main job? Migrating software? Oh, wait, is this a Unity thing? I'll have fun with that. We also show Rooster some love. Rooster's awesome. I think it was just that. Oh, here we go. Now you can hear it.
Then once. You can't do that.
Oh shit! I forgot about that. Okay, don't hit the kid. Got it.
No, there's mods that let you kill them, by the way. Who else is here? That's it. But because, you know, I'm selfish, give me a shout out.
Let me tell you about Joey. He's a smug guy. He's a good guy. I've known him for a long time. He's a good
What's up,
guy.
y'all? What's up, man? How you doing?
And games, like games are real American. Nice. I like that one.
On my dashboard, I got everything but the concurrent viewers. I'm almost there. I'm at 2 point something.
He has like.
Before I hit affiliate. Nice. Yeah, you gotta hit 3. We'll get you there. Doing some cosplay stuff also. Nice. What's the cosplay for? Is it for Monster Hunter? Jerry, can you stop fucking with my blinds? She's such an asshole. Who else? Oh yeah, I don't know if you guys are following her, but X Angel Baby Girl X. She's almost affiliated. She just needs the follows. I think last I saw she was at 42, 43. Really entertaining streamer. She's playing a lot of Silent Hill 2. She loves Dead Rising and other spooky games, even though she's scared. But a very entertaining streamer. And she cosplays. Always nice. And she fixed her audio, so she's not peaking anymore. Big deal. Big deal. All right. Let's get back to this hellhole of a boss fight. So let me plug in my phone. Actually, no. I'm gonna give Vaughn a follow over here. Or not follow, a lurk. Are you streaming, Deadwolf? Are you still streaming? No, you're not. Quit sucking. Yeah, dude, I'm doing terrible right now. Dude, it's hard. Like, the camera moves like it's in Cloverfield, and it still expects me to hit heads. I'm trying. I was. Yeah, I was lurking, but then I saw. I think you might have raided out when I came back. Oh yeah, lemon wedges. Let's give that bitch a fucking shout out too. I'm grinding in Digimon. Yeah. Is that the new one? How you liking it? I still need to play Cyber Sleuth. I think I have it on Switch and PC. Oh yeah, this is us playing Resident Evil.
Joey, I need you right now.
Oh no, yeah, this is RE2. Yeah, nice. Yeah, he sucks. He sucks at that game. He doesn't understand game balance. That goober. Close this. Get back to my stream. And let's get back to my terrible boss fight. This is hard. Actually, I'm gonna see if I can on everything. Alright, let's try this again. Also, let me know if my audio is fucked up, if the game's like too loud or anything, okay? It might be. Actually, I think it is. There we go. That's probably better. What you need to do is quit sucking. Yeah, you know what? You're right. You're right. When you're right, you're right. Okay, where is it? I'm too close. Alright. There we go. Wow. Alright. Okay, here we go. I'm trying. Dominal Spirit. Wait, did I not hit next? Wait. Oh. It's hard. But also, oop, wrong button. I think I can actually. Oh, I can't right now. But you know what I'm gonna do? A Magnum. Pull up my gat. Bitch.
This is a nightmare. Where is he?
He can't be far.
Where is he? Cheating, it's my Magnum on him. What's that cheating? That's what it's there for!
We need to finish him off right here.
Well, that Magnum was actually kind of game changing. Oh, take it easy. Oh, shit, I reload! Damn, I forgot you were on. Hey, what up, Jay? How you doing? See, that's what I was missing. Jay and Deadwolf. That's all it took. My two little lucky charms. Doing good. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, brother. You playing anything tonight?
Yeah. Let's go.
This is the good Allison Court, Claire too, I'm pretty sure. Sounds a lot like her. Watching Jujutsu Kaisen. I still need to watch that. I need to watch stuff. I don't watch stuff anymore. I just play and work. What season are they on now? Wasn't there a movie or like a prequel or something? What am I thinking of? Ooh, look at all them points. I got, Evolved Liquor, Giant Moth. Liquor, I hardly know her. Baby Moth. There's a movie between seasons 1 and 23. Oh, you fat fingered it? Yeah. Nice. Dying Wish. Let me now customize. Let's see. Ooh. Rate of fire and capacity. Did anyone see Anthony Starr is interested in playing Albert Wesker in Resident Evil movie if one comes out again? Well, one is coming out. The dude, I forgot his name. He's from Why Just Kids You Know. He did Barbarian, Companion, and he's doing the upcoming Weapons movie, which looks kind of cool. Yeah, he's doing it. We have no idea what the story is. Yeah, he would be a pretty good Wesker, I feel. He's got the look, the presence, and he's a good actor. I'd be down for that. Because like what I'm saying is I don't even know if it's gonna be based on the fucking game. You know? Like it's based on the game, but is it? That's how these movies are always. Yeah, to be honest, what's his name? The dude who played him in the live action movies, in the Paul W.S. Anderson series, he was actually a pretty good Wesker. He was literally RE5 Wesker, which is cool. But I feel like Anthony Starr would be a good RE1 Wesker. Should I do Rate of Fire? Do Rate of Fire. Lance Reddick. Lance Reddick was a terrible Wesker, but he was good in that show. Lance Reddick's always good. I disagree. The movie guy had no personality. I mean, he just did the impression from the game. I mean, he had the look and he sounded like him, but like nobody had personality in his movies. Chronicles. Yeah. Yeah, I love Lance Reddick, and he was great in that show, but he's not a good Wesker. Like, he did what he could with the role, and it was fine, but... Nah. What about Billy Zane, the one in the... Billy Zane was never in a Resident Evil movie. Or like Lance Reddick. Don't you dare! Put some spec on Lance. Billy Zane was never in a Resident Evil movie. Too soon. No, I felt that one. I was a fan. Well, I guess am a fan of his work.
Let's go. Done here.
Yeah.
Billy Zane was in an amazing Tales from the Crypt movie. Gimme. Okay. Fuckers. Alright. Shotgun. Ah! Dude! Oh my god, I had no fucking time to pick that up. I hear something behind me.
Right. I guess this is a farewell party.
Jerry, you run on ahead.
I'm gonna die already. Yeet! That's probably a waste. You streaming from a Wii? I am. Well, not from a Wii. I'm capturing Wii.
Let's go.
That's what you're asking. I have the Wii with component cables that's running to my RetroTink, which is connected to my M Classic. Oh, fuck. And then that is running to my Elgato.
He's supposed to be dead.
We've got to stop it.
I killed you, man! Oh, God. Dude, camera.
Watch out for his claw. The chairs.
Let me tell you something. Oh, nice. I got it. I didn't know Michael J. Fox was carrying the camera in this game. bullshit. What the fuck am I supposed to be aiming at? Alright, if I die, it's whatever. I don't care anymore. Fucking, oh my god, I can't hit anything! I was thinking of Boris Kuhn. Wow, you couldn't be any more. Your boy really doesn't see color. That's funny. Yeah, because that dude's like black and like German, like white. Damn. And then Billy Zane, I think he's about as white as he gets. But Billy Zane's awesome. I love Billy Zane. Can you imagine if he was cast as Lex Luthor? Like, I've been fan casting him as Lex since like I was a kid. Like, he'd be perfect in a Superman movie. But they are both bald. They have that in common. He's so old. He's too old now. And fat, I think. Nobody wants a fat Lex Luthor. I think I'm supposed to be aiming for his head. I don't know. Everything else looks armored. I can shoot him in the dick. Should I shoot them there? Aim for the pee-pee? Dude, this... He has no dick. Yeah, that's true. Look at this. I'm holding the camera still. I'm on it. Ah! 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 Fuck. Yo. Couch! Ah, damn it. Oh, cool, I got him. Alright. You don't like John Cryer as Lex Luthor? Who's John Cryer? No, I'm dead. I'm dying. I'm dead. Okay, I was... Oh, fuck. Look, man. This is hard. Who's John Cryer? What was he in? Because I don't know. I know about Mr. Krabs. What's that guy's name? I know the actor. I forgot his name. He's also in Starship Troopers and Pet Sematary 2. He voiced Lex, and it's probably like the best Lex is the animated one. And we also had Gene Hackman. We had Kevin Spacey, who was actually a pretty good Lex Luthor. And then now we have Alan from 2.5 Men. Oh, he did in the CW shows. I never really watched much of that. Like, I saw a season of Supergirl. I thought it was all right, and then I didn't see any of that Superman show. Clancy Brown, thank you. Like, I knew it. I just forgot his name. Joey, look, man. You see what this camera's doing? Michael J. Fox is the camera guy in this game.
A train. This will probably get us out of here. Come on, hurry.
Wait, you're...
Oh, not yet.
Damn it! You're supposed to...
Montel Williams is holding the camera.
Stop him. Jerry, get on, hurry.
Oh yeah, Jesse Eisenberg. A terrible Lex. A good choice. He just played him weird, man. Like, he's like a good Joker, but he's a terrible Lex. He had the look, but he just didn't act like Lex. Hashtag not my Lex. I think Jesse Eisenberg is one of the worst Lexes we got. He could have been good. I know what they were going for. They wanted like, oh, let's give him like the fucking... What's his face? Mark Zuckerberg Lex. He's got jazz hands! He's got jazz hands! Fuck. When do I shoot him? I like Jesse Eisenberg as an actor, but he was shit as in that role. Yeah, he really was. No! Got it. See, they know. Was one of the biggest piles of shits ever made. Yeah. Like, I actually like Batfleck, which is... I don't know, you're probably gonna hate that, but, I think he's a good Batman in a bad movie. Do you bleed? I hate this. Not the game, my lack of skill. Give me health, give me health, give me health. I think there is an herb down there, right? Why did I do that? 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 Fuck. Yeah, the movies suck. That's what I'm saying. The movies suck. I'll give you that. But I think he did fine. This could have been cool. The comic based on is great. Oh, you're talking about Batman Returns or Dark Knight Returns? Dark Knight. Oh. Yeah, I keep thinking of the movie titles. It is Dark Knight Returns. Frank Miller's graphic novel. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, because if you look at Ben Affleck in that costume, like boom, like that's him. Which I love the look. I also love the Jigsaw voice. You know, like the modulator. I thought it was a cool choice. And then I will say, I think a scene that is genuinely good in Batman v Superman is when they introduce Batman. When the cops, they're rolling in and they got like those chicks, I guess they were going to be like sold as like slaves or something. And then they're about to let her out and she like pulls the cage closed. She's like, no, it's still here. And you see Batman, he's like Spider-Maning on the wall. Like, I thought that was pretty cool. But that's a bright spot in a pretty dull movie. I just need to calm my titties. I have to aim low because the camera goes like down, which makes me aim up, right? Like, I have to compensate for this stupid ass camera. Like, look, I'm not moving. The Wii remote is resting on my goddamn hands right now, or my leg. Nice. Okay. All right. All right. Come on. Come on. Come on. Fuck. I don't know that one. Fuck. Oh, dude, he came back for the fucking double whammy. Okay, you know what? I'm getting desperate. Try the Magnum for a second. This might do it. This might do the trick. No more of this. Just die. Why don't you just die already?
No way. Is he regenerating?
That's fucked up.
Supposed to kill this freak. Use this.
You fucking kidding me? Okay.
We need to take it out first.
Wait, oh shit, where is it though? Hold on. I would have liked to see Baffleck get his own couple of movies, but it was too late to save that universe after BVS. Ending it was the right call. Batman v Superman wasn't that good of a movie, but I think we can all agree that Wonder Woman 1984 was worse. I actually like 84. Oh, 1984. Oh, wait, no. 1984 sucks. I think the first one's all right, but the second one's terrible. I didn't see it because the first Wonder Woman was shit. Oh, I like the first. Yeah, 2 is fucking doo-doo. Oh shit. Fucking fuck. Alright. God damn this boss. Like, I'm battling the camera more than I'm battling the fucking tyrant here, dude. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying. But I'm getting better at timing his attacks when he's like holding still in front of me, and I just have to wait. Joey, I know.
Damn it! He's supposed to be dead.
We've got to stop him. Sherry, get on, hurry. All right. Careful.
This is right here, right now. Watch out for his claw.
This one. Okay, I have to do it before on that attack. I noticed I was able to do it right, like the timing for both attacks are way different. The other one I have to do it, I think, before he even recoils to attack. You know, this is karma for liking bad movies. Okay. Okay, I don't know that one. I have to figure out that one. Fuck. Ah. Sorry, guys. Oh no! Got it. Okay, because I'm gonna need it for sure. That's a cheap shot. Because I hit him when he did that. Did I hit him too late? I don't fucking know anymore.
There he is. Shoot him. Good. This way.
Give me an herb. Stop shaking the camera. It's ridiculous. Never make it, never make it. Can't you see? You'll never make it. Oh my God. I shot him too. Like, I don't know. Yeah. have 13 shots. It's not a lot. Fucker. Okay. Ah! Maybe I can... I mean, I am trying to shoot the boss. The problem is the camera, dude. And I'll admit, my aim isn't perfect here, but like, dude, like, do you see what I know you're just talking shit, but you see what I have to deal with here. Like, I'll admit, I do accept some fault in this, but like, why is it shaky? Look at that, I'm not moving. I have to battle and compensate the fucking camera. And now I just have to survive enough to like get him to do the thing on the ground. I think that's when I rocket him. I don't know that one. Fuck, that wasn't you, but that did startle me. Fuck. Come on, Capcom. Don't you guys go like, hey, you seem retarded. You want to go on easier? I would take it at this point.
This will probably get us out of here. Come on, hurry.
I'm gonna try to mix up my strategy. This isn't even the last boss of this story. I just have to fight like Birkin. For the handgun. Oh my god! Thank you. Thank you. How loud is that for you guys? That's what I need. I need spam. Thank you guys. It's good volume? Okay. It's a lot of shit for me. Because I have to change my stuff a little bit when I use the Elgato. My audio settings still aren't perfect. No. Wait. Why am I doing better with the handgun? That's what I want to know. Marginally better. I mean, I would have used up one of my lives by now. Is this improvement? I don't know. Gimme. Got it. Or not. Oh my god. Oh wait, before I forget. Cheese him a little bit.
garbage slut! Did you fuck with me?
Sorry. I don't have any. I'm a
Thank
little
you.
baby.
Appreciate
I'm a
it.
baby. I have no money. I can pay you in blocks. No. I'm a
That's
baby.
exactly what I need, you guys. I love it. This is content. And like I said, I really don't care as long as it doesn't fucking lock up my goddamn stream again.
You sure about that?
No.
Sure about that? That's why? You sure it wasn't because after the thing that happened, no one could look at me without dying laughing? You sure about that? You sure about that's not why?
Oh my god, camera! Oh, well, he's... we're fine. I think. Oh, shit! Raid! Thank you, Lemon. How you doing, man? Appreciate the raid. Why aren't you streaming for like 6 hours at night? Yeah, it's that one. That's the one I genuinely don't know how to counter. Tight. I can't do it every night. Says who?
Tight, yeah!
Be the change you want to see. Nah, I get it.
This is now going to be in my head for the rest of the day.
Oh, fuck.
Okay, that's enough of that.
Oh my god. Get the rocket launcher, get the rocket launcher! Alright. It's okay, I have a heating spray. Is this enough? Is this enough? Can I beat him now? You should be able to beat him now! Maybe not. Or what if... Yeah, when is he off guard? Okay. Someone look it up. When is he off guard? Is he off guard there? Is that when I do it? Bitch. Can gape on this boss for like an hour? Not an hour. Like half an hour. Exaggerate much? Oh god, switch! Fuck. Oh, fuck! This sucks, man. We need dinosaur power now! God damn it. I'm so scared. Ah! The cat's staring at me. Man, about to lose everybody in that raid. Probably if I didn't already. What up, people? My name is Shattered Limit. I'm a variety streamer. I like Resident Evil, except this boss fight. Jeez, you're doing like no damage. Well, I'm doing damage at certain points. I'm learning when to attack and when not to, and what to try to aim for a few of his special attacks. Some of them I legit don't know what the fuck to do. But I have like the rocket launcher that I have to catch him at a very specific moment. And then I guess if I do it right, or in maybe the first stage of that, he fucking catches it. He threw the rocket back at me. Oops. And this camera is like He's learning. Yeah. A variety of Resident Evil games. The camera is awful. I don't know if you guys have noticed it. It's basically Cloverfield. It's hard to hit anything when it's like getting real crazy. See, that's the one I don't really know. Okay. Okay, alright. Get it. Get it. Got it. Also, that's the first time I didn't get hit by that. I am learning, you dick. Have you played this before? I'm just curious. Do you have a Wii? You seem like you might have had a Wii.
Let's get retarded. Let's get retarded in here.
Thank you.
Let's get retarded in
I like that song.
Retarded in here.
Played both these games when they came out. Yeah, nice. I beat both of them on PS3 when I got that. In like 2016 was when I got my PS3. Fuck. Why is he harder than Birkin? I was doing a call back from when you wrote that in JC. Oh, I know you did. No. Good one. Can you emulate these with mouse controls? I might do that sometime. Yeah, you can. I was saying earlier in this stream, I was tempted to do that, but it feels like cheating. Fuck. Guys sleep, need to be rested for my concealed carry class tomorrow night. Oh, dude, have fun with that. Tell me how it goes. But yeah, you can emulate these. Fucking bitch. Just fucking spam him. I hate you. Oh, Joey, that's what it wants. Oh, oops. It wants you to lose control. Bye, Lemon. You're dead to me. No, I'm just kidding.
No way. Is he regenerating? How the hell are we supposed to kill this freak?
Thank you for the raid again.
Use this. Vega, is that you? Leon, we need to take him out first.
Yeah. Fucker. No! Ah! It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Guys, this is the one. Please tell me this is the one. I think now that's when I'm supposed to do it, maybe? When he's like... Okay. Maybe. Because he's gonna dodge this one. It's probably not the one. Yeah, if history's taught us anything. They caught it because he's a dick, and I have to shoot this. mean, I'm closer than I was. He needs to stop healing, you bitch. No more. Okay. Leon, now! Oh wait, no. What? Oh, he's gotta be less health, I think. Oh. I need dinosaur power now! Now? Oh. Well, time to use it if it's not time to use it. Or maybe that was the time to use it? I don't fucking know. Okay, alright, alright. Yeah, right, yeah. Oh, fuck, I didn't reload it. No, fuck! Alright. I mean, look, I am doing better. I'm not doing great, but I'm doing better. Not that much better. Oops. Oh, I was landing those. Why am I not anymore? Fuck. Okay. Oh shit, okay, alright, shit. Please?
I'm putting an end to this.
Oh, I told you this was the one. Ah, hell yeah. God damn.
Leon, hurry!
Yeah.
That's my heart rate right now too. You hear that? That's me. Did you hear that or the salty ass dinner I had? First try. Pro gamer.
It's over.
Not yet. I still have to find my brother.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Oh yeah.
What the? What was that?
What the fuck?
Claire? Everything's all right. I'll go have a look.
Yes, leave the child unattended. Nice. Resident Evil with their synthesized opera singing. Oh, everything reminds me of her.
It's him again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's William. Follow this all this way?
This is ridiculous!
Oh boy. You baka! Also, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah. Oh. Oh, I pressed B. See, is that, you don't gotta press it, you gotta like mash it. Oh. Shit. Wait. Okay, alright. Let's not use that weapon. Oh shit! Reloading!
Let's separate the connector.
On it! Oh shit. So you think I'm too good, so they had to nerf me. I'm trying! Okay, I was gonna say I did shoot it, bitch. Alright, give me health, please. Is that it? Did I win? Did I win, son? Whew. Sheesh. First try. It's up to us to stop Umbrella. Oh, thanks.
I'm proud of you, you know
Thanks,
that.
Jay.
I hope you do.
Are you, though? Are you? No, I appreciate it.
About your mother.
Proud of you for playing Kingdom Hearts today. I really enjoyed watching.
The vaccine that saved you.
Graveyard. Yeah. Graveyard? Graveyard?
Loved you very much. Always has. Right up till the end.
No, that's a lie.
4.5 hours already beat the tutorial. I barely. Yeah, dude. This is what I'm saying. It's like I exaggerated, but it's a long ass fucking sequence. Four and a half hours. That's a good stream length.
That, Claire set out alone to find her brother, and Sherry and I.
After this, I think is the next sequence in Operation Javier. Yeah. But this is also the one with the Code Veronica cover. I really like that one.
She's an innocent.
An innocent who carries the G antibody. Don't worry. We're taking
Like this did a good job at retelling Code Veronica.
You have the experience we're looking for. So if you want this to end peacefully.
Oh, that's right. They told him. It's like, hey, it's like jail or become fucking James Bond.
And just like that.
He's U.S. James Bond. When's the Resident Evil PvP? For sure soon, because we have a finite amount of time till we can even play it before the servers are shut down. So I'm actually thinking I might play that like a day a week, at least a day a week, starting next week. So all of June. Because that one's a pretty big deal. It always felt like Leon's story between 2 and 4 was missing. Yeah, that's kind of what this is supposed to be. This references the training, and then it does Operation Javier, so it's him and Krauser on a mission. But I totally feel you. We need more like Resident Evil. I was gonna say 2.5, but that's 3. You know what I mean, though. We need like give us a whole game based on that. Excuse me, sorry. Because he's a dramatically different character. I don't think you were here earlier, but I was saying RE2 Leon is kind of a dork, and then RE3 Leon or RE4 Leon is Batman. I don't see the handgun came in clutch. I should hold off. Let me just not for a second. I'm an RE2 guy, but 4 is great. I love 4. Both of them. I know you feel it didn't need a remake. I agree, but the remake we got is fucking dope. And the changes it does make, I do think it justifies it. RE6 Leon is depressed. Kind of. I'd say RE6 Chris is depressed. He's the one that's like, he's got like amnesia because he's fucking crashed out so hard. Ben! Yeah, Chris is the emo one. Like, cheer up, emo kid. There's no RE6, silly. RE6 is fun. It's fucking stupid, but it's fun. Actually, where'd the grenades go? Didn't they have grenades? Guess not. I guess I'm out of grenades. Do I have to make those last the whole game? Or are they found items only?
I told Krauser everything.
Yeah, this is
He just listened.
Resident Evil 3.5 right here.
But the situation in the village was different from Raccoon. There were controlled BOWs amongst the rest.
And I believe Operation Javier is supposed to be canon. Speaking of Resident Evil 4 Remake, check out that video I sent when you get a chance. Oh, I will. I'll do it after stream. Honestly, I love upscaling like this era of, because I'm upscaling this.
You don't have to worry.
I think the stuff does a pretty good job of cleaning it up. Because this is not an HD system. I think it spits out 480 max.
You all right?
So you're the girl, huh?
Of course, emulation will do better, at least for in-game rendering. I think
What happened to them?
it can clean up pre-render cutscenes, but not that great.
We're here on a mission, looking for an American who had contacted Javier about a virus. We need to find Javier, and we were hoping you could take us to Amparo. So that's Javier's.
Yes. I escaped through there.
See. Give me that, because I'm definitely gonna need it.
We should be able to get out of here.
Who wins in a fist fight? RE4 Leon versus RE5 Chris? Oh, bro. Oh, dude, that's tough. That is actually a really good matchup. Because RE4 Chris, like I said, Leon, he's like Batman, dude. He's got like the training, he's got all the bullshit gadgets. But RE6 or goddamn RE5 Chris is the Hulk. So I'd say Leon gets points for being nimble and having the hand-to-hand training. Chris is fucking, if he gets his hands on him, he'll just bend him in half. He'd be like Jason in Jason X when he like breaks that dude. You know what I mean? It'd be like that.
This must be the distance.
Fuck, man.
These little guys don't waste their time.
Well, also Leon took out like El Gigantes and stuff, so I'm gonna say Leon. He punched that boulder. Yeah, he did. I mean, it's not like the punch did it. He was shoving it, but while shoving it, he was like uppercutting the boulder. It was so stupid. I'm gonna go with Leon. I got Chris. Okay.
Looks like he took his weight loss plan way too seriously.
That's a good one though, dude.
Here comes the cavalry.
Damn, where was it? There was an accuracy during the fight.
Let's just keep moving.
And this camera hates me so much.
This place is a menagerie of freaks.
Like overall, I think this is a good game, but that camera, dude.
Manuela, how did you make it past all these things?
What do you mean?
It's just that.
Come on, kid, answer the question.
Movies.
I don't know. I didn't see anyone when I came through here.
Don't know.
Good to know.
We have to go home and get some empanadas.
Wait, why do you want to find Javier
We are in South America here, I think, right?
You saw the traps he
Think
set
so.
for all those monsters. You really think someone like that should be allowed to walk free?
I suppose.
This girl kind of has like a tragic ass story too. I got him, Chris, or Krauser. See something blinking.
You'll need to follow me.
I'll say I need to restock my ammo after that bullshit we just dealt with. You know, you look what I'm capable of when the camera's not jittering.
Where are we?
I came down those stairs.
Here we go again. This thing sure like to make an entrance.
Okay! I'll use my shotgun, fine.
Okay.
Ouch.
Let's keep going.
I was like just feeling myself too.
Another one?
Another one. Yeah, Jay, if you're still here, play it with a fucking mouse. Emulate it with a mouse. Like, oh, dude, and if you want, I really do recommend Dead Aim. You can play that with a mouse. That one actually has mouse support on console. It's one of those PS2 games that has yeah, USB mouse support. So you can set that up in PS2X. And I think that's a very great way to play that game. Shit. And then when you get to this, definitely play with the mouse. If you can play it like with a Wii, or yeah, I'll probably do a bunch of spin-offs. Which ones are you excited for? Like, because this would be like a first for a lot of you. Or I worded that really weird. This would be a lot of firsts for you, right? Because you haven't played all of the spin-offs. I think I'm having a stroke. I mostly just played mainline. Yeah, the Revelations are good. Like, those are both good, in my opinion. Survivor sucks, but Dead Aim is cool. And it's like 2 hours long. You'll...
Bastards just won't give up. He really doesn't want us getting past this dam. I don't think these guys are gonna move for us.
Yeah, you're gonna hate Survivor 1 and 2.
That wasn't so bad.
I played Survivor. Oh yeah, you said you kind of have a nostalgia for it because you used to own it, right?
Oh, great.
I mean, it still sucks. But yeah, I guess you won't hate it, but Survivor 2 sucks dick. Yo, that zombie got boob physics.
Shit, they're everywhere.
It do suck. Oh shit! God damn, dude. Did the brother get some reaction time?
Where are we going?
There's a passage up this way that will take us outside.
Yeah.
So Javier's mansion is close.
What other spin-offs are there that I think you'll like? I mean, you might enjoy these.
Javier...
I don't consider Code Veronica a spin-off. I think that's, yeah, the real RE3. Oh, I got Operation Raccoon City to work. So expect that too soon, but I got priorities. Like I said, I think just because it's going to be unplayable soon, I really do want to play Reverse while I can. I don't think I'll like it, but I want the experience, you know? Oh shit, the fish are back. A piranha! They live in the Amazon. Oh shit. Dude, I can't even see it! Let me just shoot blindly? I'll fucking shoot blindly. Nice Predator music. Sounds like ah! Oh boy. Not the mama, motherfucker. Oh shit, what was that? Oh, nice, an herb. Herbs and spices. So, you said after Fatal Frame? Are you talking about after all the Fatal Frames? Or after this next Fatal Frame?
What now?
Bitch. Okay, I'm sorry.
She's not here.
I only have 2 left. Yeah, so okay. So did you start 4 yet? You didn't, right? No. So yeah, 4 and 5. Is there a Fatal Frame 6? Probably. Stop spitting on me, it's rude. Nope, okay. You should no, it's not possible without hardware capture or doing that thing through the Wi-Fi or whatever so you can capture it, but you know about the 3DS spin-off, Spirit Camera?
You're right. Thank God you're okay.
I never actually played it. I've seen gameplay. And I have it on my modded 3DS now. I kinda wanna check it out, just out of curiosity. I don't even know if it has a story, so I think it does.
You were singing that at the church too, right?
Oh shit, I forgot. After this, I'll set up the movie night event. Or oh, what's it called again?
Wait.
Started with an A. It's like a weird ass name.
It's Javier.
That puppet horror movie. I heard it was good. And it does have a really good cast.
Javier has a daughter? That doesn't matter now. Let's go after her. Get out of my way!
Oh shit!
Manuela!
Ooh.
Javier!
This dude looks like he's from a completely different game. He looks like a Time Crisis villain.
You need only to follow my directions for 15 years. This will prevent the transformation. But please, my dear, you must be patient.
What the fuck?
Gave us the Veronica virus
The Veronica virus?
These Americans cannot save you, my dear. Only I, your father.
Yeah, I think tying the Veronica virus to this, and then this is kind of inherently related to RE4. I think it's a really cool way to bridge that. And then I think this is where it starts the Code Veronica. Like, I think you do Operation Javier, I think it's told like 1 chapter per game. You know what I mean? Yeah, see?
Dreadful horror cleared and
I'm actually pretty stoked for this part. I remember really enjoying this segment of the game. Our Code Veronica retelling. No clear. Oh, nice. I did it. No damage, though. Whack. Oh, good scores? Weird. Hey, they happen every now and then. You bitch! Man, I gotta take notes from you and Paul. You guys are like just amazing shit talkers. Honestly, I'm really liking the handgun. I kind of just want to save up and upgrade this motherfucker. Stopping power would actually be kind of dope, though. A D+ to a C. What weapons do I got? Shotgun is nice. Power or stopping power, capacity, submachine gun, a magnum. Wait. Oh, rocket launcher and grenade launcher. Okay, I was like, what? Bowgun sucks dick. Alright, I'm gonna add it to... I'll do a little bit of stopping power, and then next time I'll give it the actual power. Claire, of course. Claire's best girl. It's fun. They're all best girl. I'll do the grenades, and then yeah, that should be fun. It's funny. I was just about to say Code Veronica is underrated, but actually, I think it's one of the most beloved entries in the franchise. I take that back.
Having been involved in the foundation of Umbrella, the Ashford family had also independently...
At one point, I believe it was underrated.
Virus. However, 15 years ago, Alexander Ashford disappeared under mysterious circumstances. To make things worse,
I'm really excited for your RE streams.
Alexia, a child...
And it's funny, even though I had like a year and some change as a heads up, you'll still probably beat the franchise before me.
Her untimely demise brought an end to
this rate.
The Veronica project. And the Umbrella files show...
That'd be funny. Because like the first 3, honestly, you could probably finish those in like 2 days. 1 if you get like a nice crazy stream. Maybe 2.
Alexia's brother, Alfred, was demoted to a mere supervisor.
We'll go through them pretty quick once I start. Yeah. Yeah, those first ones, you could beat those like in a sitting, you know?
I feel like this year
It's the incest twins. I'm pretty sure they're doing stuff. They seem a little too close.
almost like there's something I'm forgetting.
My dear Alfred, please be easy on yourself. Why don't you set down your burdens and play a game with me?
You're right, Alexia. Since you've come back,
I do like this characterization of Alfred, but I do miss the fucking anime villain from Code Veronica. That dude was wacky. In here, it's like it almost feels a bit more grounded. Like honestly, Steve kind of rocks in this version. Steve's like I get it. Like as a character, he's annoying, but damn it, I blame that voice acting.
Wait, I wasn't trying to escape. The alarm sounded and the door unlocked. I thought that I...
Rockford Prison, detainee 267. Guess you're not with Umbrella then, are you?
Umbrella.
I'm Claire Redfield.
Damn, girl.
Damn, babe.
Eyes forward. So, what's your name?
My name's Steve.
You can call me anytime.
You don't look like one of them, Claire. They get you too?
Yeah, you could say that.
What's happening on this island?
Someone must have attacked. Caused a biohazard.
Biohazard?
I don't have time to explain everything. Let's just get out of here.
I don't have time, little boy. She's mine. I just have that extra chromosome for you. Like, I'll take both.
What the hell's going on here? Why are they after us? Look.
Why is the camera shaking? No!
Your call.
Nice to have another option, but oh well.
I hope you know how to use that thing.
Hold still! As a kid, the graveyard scene in the beginning of this game, well, not this one, but the original Code Veronica, when Claire gets outside and the zombies are getting out, that actually gave me nightmares. I was like 10, 11 when I played it. Just probably too old to be a little bitch, but I don't know, something about that.
Anyone else in here with you?
TV is one of the spookiest REs.
Broke free right after all this happened. I have no idea what caused this.
Look, there's some
They also just had a great setting.
Were there any computers around here?
There are 3. The guards had them. We used them for games. Oh, and porn, too.
Maybe I'll be able to find out what happened.
Nice.
Well, guess it's not your kind of humor. Hey, where are you going?
You don't have to come if you don't want to.
I know.
I think I saw a little dog. That was actually really cool. Oh, shit.
Shit, not again.
I'll save you, zombie.
What else are we going to be dealing with? Let's get inside. Alright, here we go.
Yeah, those zombies are going to town on that thing. The zombie dog. Hey, pet that dog. Pet that dog.
I know it's a mess, but feel free to make yourself at home.
Oh God. What happened here?
Wish I knew. I took off without looking back.
Give me, fucking camera. Oh.
I'm gonna take a look.
Oh, I can't do it yet. Okay. And also the soundtrack. I think Code Veronica has a great soundtrack. Very memorable tracks. You got this, Steve?
I think it was just the wind. Look, what are you trying to find out anyway?
That's
I like how he has a Battle Royale little bomb collar. Honestly, it should have gone off when we left the island. Steve, best boy? Think so? Are you asking me or are you saying? Like, is Steve best boy? Like saying it to yourself? This is best Steve. I like this Steve more than, you know, proper Steve. Like, he's still like, he's still got like the essence, but he's not like a whiny little bitch. I think Steve is kind of pathetic. Oh no, I think Steve. Oh no, he's not best boy. I think he's a good character. Like, I thought we talked about this. I think he has like a kind of like a tragic story. He's just his voice acting. I think he's a victim of terrible voice acting. And he's kind of a whiny little bitch. And this one, he's just kind of cool. Like, he's a proper RE male. Now, if anything, best boy is probably Piers from 6.
It's a dead end. This way's no good either.
Hold on, I'll read that in a second. Sorry, Steve, I think I shot your hand. I'm all in on the OGs, Chris and Jill, still the goats. Respect that. Yeah, I kind of teeter-totter if I like Chris or Leon more.
See them hiding there.
But I do like Claire more than Jill. I love Jill. I love them all. I love them all. But if I'm strictly being a perv, Sheva.
There's nothing left in here.
I love them all. Like, honestly, Steve's probably low in the totem pole, but this is a better Steve. The redemption of Steve.
Coming in.
Why not give him a hand?
Why don't you give me a hand and fucking stay the fucking camera? Saw something over there. What was it? Oh shit! I shot Steve. I can't even tell what the fuck I'm looking at. Hold the goddamn camera still. I feel like a dad, you know? Where they're like, hold the light still. What about Billy? Oh, Billy's good too. Billy's good. I think Billy's dead. I don't think Billy made it. Billy died in that forest. Changed my mind. Billy too badass to be dead. He's so badass, where is he? No, he's probably hiding in like Cuba.
Pretty good, huh?
He's living up in Spain or something. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I hope this still works.
Looks like my brother was never even here. Umbrella probably doesn't know where he is.
Oh, I like this part. This is actually a cool cutscene. He's clearly checking out her ass. And he does one of these.
Missing for 3 months.
Yeah, this is a cooler Steve.
I was in Paris looking for
Better than
I
can't. That little whiny bitch.
And you were sent here.
What about you? What's your
Father?
You don't want to know.
Just tell me.
I didn't even do anything.
I'll say Luis from RE4 is my favorite character. The dude in the... Yeah, we know who he is. we're RE stands, so if you say a name, we know exactly who he is. But, yeah. Yeah, Luis was cool.
This place, do you?
They actually expanded him a lot in the remake, which I appreciated.
The Ashfords. That's Alfred.
Also a fairly tragic character. If you look into his story.
He went mad from loneliness.
But why would anyone want to bomb this place? Anyway, I've got to contact Leon. He'll come for us.
I'm gonna come. Do not come. Do not come. Oh shit. Do not come. Oh Lord, they're coming. Steve, earn your keep. It's sad he died. Yeah. Yeah, he's one of the rare... Like, he's not a pro tag. He's not, like, playable, but he's one of, like, the... One of the few supporting characters I'm like, damn. Not you too, man.
But we don't know where it goes.
Where are your manners? No way to treat a lady.
They probably think you're cute.
Oh, nice. Dude, this is actually pretty good lighting for a Wii. What is that? What is that?
I guess they stopped following us.
Okay, oh, nice. Actually, for the doggies, I might need this. Steve, why are you dying?
Something's in here.
Well, we can't go back.
Feels like a reload button.
Looks like it's not just humans who returned.
So you're the ones dragging the bodies out of me.
The longer we stay, the more dangerous it
You're right. Let's go.
Whoa! They got group tactics. Fine. They don't sound like dogs. They sound like fireworks. What is that?
I think we need to go back to that square again.
Right. We'll find another route from there. We can't go straight. Nothing but a solitary cell down that way.
Then we'll need to go this way.
Steve, if I get a game over because of you.
Time! They're closing in!
Spoilers.
Let's find out.
That's funny. Jay, your favorite RE is the original 2, right? Or is it remake 1? It's one of those, right? Yeah, original 2. Okay, yeah. Solid choice. Solid choice.
What are you gonna do? She must be out of her mind singing a lullaby at a time like this.
I'm glad I found your stream, dude. I don't think I'd be doing this if I didn't, to be honest.
I should have just left you alone too.
You were very motivating.
Fans are here.
Oh shit, goddamn! Goddamn!
No rest for the wicked.
I like that song.
Bastards.
I need to motivate myself to start my videos again. Yeah, same, dude. You know what I was actually saying? It might be silly, but I know because I have the script, I have the footage. I just need to fucking record and edit the Maximo thing. But to be honest, dude, I was so moved by El Paso Elsewhere that I kind of want to do that. So I'm kind of torn. I should just, you know,
Sounds like maybe a bird?
strap up Maximo. Do it. Which one? No! It's like that Lou Diamond Phillips movie. Whichever one gets you more excited. I'm really feeling El Paso Elsewhere.
They'll be back. I can feel it.
Search it in your heart, you know it's true.
Trying to stop us from going this way.
Why now?
But yeah, I really liked your Kingsfield video. I'd love for you to revisit that. You're a good editor. God damn, what was it fucking filled with? Napalm? Nitroglycerin? It's written and recorded. It's like 2/3 done for like the past 8 months. See, mine, I have the footage. I don't have the VO. I don't have the VO. But I have the script. So, and with the editing, I mean, editing, it's actually not that, I don't think it's that hard. I think it's just super time consuming. I'd say maybe I'm like 1/3 done. 2/5. But you'll get it done. It just sucks because I remember when I was working on the Maximo video, when I was getting close to the end, I think I was actually canceling a few streams to give myself time to work on it. If that's the case, when I do get to editing, I might drop like, because I'd say I do a pretty consistent 2 days a week. I'm trying to keep it at 3. On a good week, I could do 4 because like Monday, but you know, social life kind of gets in the way. But if it's one of those weeks where it's like a 2, I can probably pick it up. Fuck, I'm gonna keep playing. I should raid out. I got a good score that time too. You guys got anybody who's streaming late that you want to check out? I'll probably raid out. I think this is probably a good spot to end it and not wake up hating life. But good chat. I'm really glad I'm back on this one. It is fun when I'm not fucking dealing with, like, here, try to shoot my head. This is what the game is doing half the fucking time. I got no one. Got me. No, this is stupid. Yeah. All right, this setup. I'll just leave this until I'm done with this game because, like, it looks like my Wii and my probably under my computer are like on life support right now. There's cables everywhere. I'll clean it up. I'll put the USB capture away. I'll scoot the RetroTink back. But let me quit this. Oh shit. Hold on. That was easy. All I have, I have nothing. All I have left is Spider-Man. Good one. Let's see. Who do we got? Lemonade streaming anymore. You guys want to watch some Silent Hill? Oh, dude, Brett-tastic's playing Ratchet and Clank Size Matters. Brett-tastic's sweet. He's like a cool, like, New Zealand dude. Retro, all actual hardware. He's a fun time. Yeah. Yeah, let's raid Brett-tastic. He's cool. Alright, well, see ya. Yeah, peace out, everyone. If you don't want to stick around for the raid, I get it. But he's cool. He's cool. Give him a follow. Check him out. He also does a lot of rubbing out for me tonight. Oh yeah, dude, that's a given. I'm gonna do that. Like, give me 3 minutes. Then I'll be done. Let's see. All right, Brad-tastic Ninja. Yeah, if you like retro streams, this guy's honestly, I think, one of the better ones. Kind of underrated. He also does like, he's doing this. He was streaming, funny enough, like a Bionicle game. Apparently it's like one of the better ones, but he did it to bring awareness to the GOG or GOG thing. I forget what it's called, but I guess people can vote for games to be supported by them. It's a cool thing. Like, he likes games that much that he's willing to try to get people. It's almost like a fundraiser. Actually, it won't work here. I have to type in OBS. Brad-tastic Ninja. All right, peace out, guys. I'll play this more tomorrow. Maybe I'll finish it tomorrow, hopefully. Because I think I just have Operation Javier and the rest of Code Veronica. I don't think it's that long. Bye!